don't know if you guys noticed, but in the last, in pretty much all of my streams so far, that's basically been like a rotation of like 3 or 4 songs. They are all part of T-Pain's Pizzle Pack. And basically if you don't know what that is, Pizzle Pack is T-Pain's songs that he created all by himself and put out there and released. And the reason he did it is because he actually streams on Twitter as well. And so he basically put it out there and said, hey, everybody can use this, right? Anybody that wants to use this, you're never going to get a DMCA strike. Nobody's ever going to come after you for copyright violations. You can use this on your stream, on your YouTube, whatever it is. So been using those. There's also Harris Heller's Stream Beats. If you don't know, he's also a streamer as well as does a good amount of videos around like Twitch and stuff on YouTube. But he basically said, hey, I'm going to go buy the rights to a bunch of these songs that people have already created. I'm going to put them on Spotify, and then you guys can use them. So we may switch it up to Stream Beats over the next few days, next few streams. But welcome. It is week 4 of the NFL. I'm not quite as excited about this week's games as I was last week. I mean, there was a couple of really big games last week. Bucks Rams, obviously probably the biggest game of the week because we thought that those two teams were the best 2 in the league or close to it, at least top 3, top 4. Those guys, matching up was going to be good. I love the idea of the Chiefs against Chargers last week. Thought that was a phenomenal game. Ended up being a terrific matchup. Went down to the wire. Chargers showed that they've got some guts and they can get after it. Ended up taking down the mighty Chiefs, who are actually only 1-2. And we'll talk a little bit about them. Should we be worried about the Chiefs? It is week 4. Welcome in. It is the pregame show for NFLosophy. I am Joe. For those of you that don't know me, if this is your first time, if you have been in here a bunch, I really appreciate you guys coming back. Man, it's funny because even on Thursday night, I was excited for the game. Rickard, thanks so much. Appreciate it coming in. Thanks for the follow. I was really excited. Oh, if you guys don't know, I've made a couple additions to the overlays this week. So again, we're going to make this better every single week, as much time as I can find in my schedule and my busy schedule with a pregnant wife. We're going to try to continue to try to make this better. So, really appreciate you guys coming in. I still am excited for a lot of the games this week. Even on Thursday, I was excited for the game. Like Jacksonville, Cincinnati, I actually thought that there was an opportunity for Jacksonville to make that a game, and they did. I ended up taking Cincinnati and the points in that game, but and taking them to cover the points in that game, which they did not, which kind of sucks. Starts out the week 0-1, but the reason that Jacksonville ended up covering was because they did exactly what we said that they should do. Take James Robinson, run the football in the first half. Get him going. Like, take some easy shots on first down or some easy throws on first down. Get the ball moving, get ahead of the chains, have a couple successful plays. Don't be afraid to run Robinson, but run him in smart situations. Don't put everything on Trevor Lawrence. And they did exactly that. And they played a really good first half. And then all of a sudden they were like, hey, let's go back to what we were doing the first 2 weeks because we're doing way too well in this particular game. So let's go back to that first 2 weeks and just completely destroy our chances. And Cincinnati ends up coming from behind, winning that game on a last second field goal. Cincinnati was the better team the entire way. Cincinnati's 3-1. I think that's a little bit of a veil. I don't think they're that good. The defense is pretty solid. Don't get me wrong. The defense is pretty good. But it's not like it's not like the Bengals have really come through and played an incredibly hard slate of teams in the first few weeks. So I think it's what we can expect from them, right? I mean, they beat a bad Pittsburgh team. They beat a bad Jacksonville team. They did beat Minnesota, though I would argue that they should have lost that game in week 1. Minnesota absolutely should have won that game. And then they actually lost to Chicago. So I'm not sure the Bengals are for real. So, I mean, they'll take the 3-1, but they're going to get, and the thing is they're going to get Green Bay next week. And then they're going to get Detroit. So they're probably going to end up maybe 4-2. But remember, when I worked for the Bucks in 2011, we went 4-2 and then lost our last 10 games. So just because you end up 4-2 doesn't mean you're a good team. We lost our last 10 games. Raheem ends up getting fired. I get fired with him, and the rest is, and then I end up on Twitter, and the rest is history. I'd rather be here with you guys anyways than working in the NFL. So, way too many long hours for way too little of pay, if I'm being honest. But it was a blast while doing it too. So, not really sure Cincinnati's for real. Jacksonville, Urban got out, celebrated his L last night, had a good time. It got posted on Twitter. If you haven't seen that, really, here's the thing. The one thing that I'm surprised with Urban was Urban went out in Ohio State gear, which I get it. It's your old team. You still got the gear laying around. You really might like that hoodie or that pullover or whatever, the 3/4 zip or whatever it was. But the number one rule about going out and drinking when you are in the NFL or work for a college team or whatever it is, don't go out in your gear. Do not wear your emblem anywhere on your body. Nobody should know who you are or where you're from, except probably the girl you're talking to. Because I'm sure Urban probably told that girl that was grinding on him last night that wasn't his wife who he was. So I'm sure she knew. And I'm sure that there was everybody in the bar talking about who he was, which is probably why that girl was grinding on him. But maybe that's besides the point. So whatever it is, do not, like, that's a rookie mistake. Don't wear your gear. I don't care if it's your old gear. Like, if you go from the Bucks to the Lions, you don't still wear the Bucks, or, and I get it, it's college to NFL, but you still don't wear your old gear. Don't ever wear your football gear out. Come on. Like, you got to know this. Urban keeps talking about there's good guys in that locker room, and they deserve to win. And, and then he's caught out having a good time. Saturdays are for the boys, right? So he clearly enjoys Saturdays more than Sundays. So good for Urban Meyer. Had a little bit of fun last night. Probably going to be some problems today waking up. Probably some problems when he got home last night, because I'm sure his wife was made well aware whenever those videos ended up on Twitter. But that's probably all we'll cover on about the Thursday night game. We'll get into all the other games today. Like I said, there's a few really good games today. So the games that I am super interested in today are Cleveland, Minnesota. So one of the weird things happened this week. The Minnesota Cleveland line actually moved a full point towards Minnesota, which I thought was interesting, because if you guys are here on Thursday, I think Minnesota is actually a pretty good football team. I think they've had a bit of bad luck. The defense is up and down throughout a game, but they tend to come around in the second half. And then I think that offense is for real. They can run the ball as well as anybody in the league. It doesn't matter if it's Madison or Cook back there. Cousins has been incredibly accurate. Probably the most accurate quarterback in the first 3 weeks in the NFL so far. He's not really pushing the ball down the field a lot, but man, he is throwing dimes on those short to intermediate routes. And those guys are getting open, running after the catch. So Minnesota is going to be an interesting in the way that they play, right? So Minnesota playing that short to intermediate game, it eliminates, and this is what I keep saying about a lot of the teams that we talk about, they have bad offensive lines. That short to intermediate game really helps that offensive line. They know they have a bad offensive line, and they are now scheming to that bad offensive line, which is fantastic. It's smart. If you know you've got a weakness, coach away from that weakness. Know that it's there, but then help out that weakness to make sure that nobody can take advantage of it. And if Kirk Cousins continues to get rid of the ball quickly, the offensive line becomes null and void as to really how bad they are. As long as they're not letting free rushers come in, Cousins can get the ball out, and they have a bunch of good receivers that are able to get open against man coverage or zone. So really interesting team. They can run the football. So, really interesting team coming into this game. Cleveland, obviously a big win last week over Chicago when Chicago had 1 net yard passing. So with the Justin Fields experiment. So we'll see. Really fascinated to see how that goes. That's probably one of my favorite games this week. Also really interested in KC Philly. I don't necessarily think that's going to be a close game, but I'm interested to see how Philly comes around in that game. Carolina Dallas is probably my most interesting scheme game today. And we talked a little bit about it on Thursday. We'll get into it a little bit more. Seattle San Francisco should be interesting. Arizona Rams, Cards Rams is going to be, that's probably my number one game today that I want to watch. I mean, I think the Rams are the best team in football. I'm not sold on the Cardinals yet still. And if you've been here, you know that, and I'm going to continue to underestimate them until I finally just, get it there. Banduzel, welcome in. Let's see. Baltimore Denver is going to be a fascinating game. That line hasn't moved all week. Denver's favored by 1, so we'll see. And then let's see. So yeah, Tampa Bay, New England. Everybody else is really excited about this game. I think it's going to be closer than people think. This doesn't feel like it's a huge matchup win for the Bucks. I do think the Bucks are the overall better team. 6.5 is a really interesting line to me. It was 7, and now Bucks are now favored by only 6.5. So we'll see. I think it's just because they're out of. We know that they're out of cornerbacks. They had to go get Richard Sherman, and he's probably going to start. News is today, and then the other big game is obviously Monday night. Like, that's going to be a fantastic Monday night game. Super excited about that one. Vegas minus, or let's see, Chargers favored by 3 in that one, right, as of 8 o'clock this morning. So as always, you can do exclamation point odds. I added a little extra this morning in terms of being able to pull up odds on screen while we talk about them, which is going to be nice. But yeah, we'll get through all of these games. We'll get through all of these games today. As always, please throw your questions in chat. Can be in real life football, NFL. It can be fantasy football, sit, start, don't really care, whatever it is. We're here to talk football. So whatever you guys want to talk about, that's what we'll talk about. I have my things that I want to get to, but as always, it's way more fun if this is a conversation, not a presentation. So, before we get into that, the one thing, I don't know how many people are here know my background. So I am originally from Kentucky, which oddly makes me a Kentucky football fan. Well, let's put it like this. I follow Kentucky football. I'm not a UK fan because those basketball fans are a lot like the Ohio State fans, the Ohio State football fans. They're just loud and obnoxious and arrogant, and I want to put them at arm's length. I root for UK football. I like UK because I'm from there. I'm from that area. I follow them. I am not a fan to the degree that I bleed blue like everybody else there does. So, really fun game last night. They ended up taking down Florida. My wife is a Florida grad. She was not happy. Only the second loss that Florida's had in the last like 40 years or something like that. So there was she didn't speak to me a lot last night. All of her friends obviously graduated from Florida, so I had to make sure to send a big group chat to make sure, send them a couple UK gifs. They were not super happy about that. But when you only get to win twice in 40 years, you got to kind of dance a little bit every once in a while. She was like, my wife goes, UK is storming the field for beating Florida? Absolutely we are. Like, that's a big game. When you haven't beaten somebody in that long, I think it was like 68 or something like that. Crossover, welcome in, brother. Welcome back. Appreciate you. Good morning to you too. So yeah, so whenever we win for the first time since like 68 at home, of course, and that crowd was a huge part of that game. So if anybody doesn't know, basically Kentucky didn't necessarily win that game. Florida lost it because their offensive line apparently can't wait until the ball snapped. I think they had 8 false starts, and most of them were on third downs, like third and shorts, to be precise. And it ended up costing them a bunch. Kentucky's defense played pretty well. Their offense still has ways to go, even with the former Rams offensive assistant as an offensive coordinator. Like, they can't seem to find a quarterback that can complete a pass on third down. And until they do that, it's going to be struggle bus city for them for a while. All right. Not that you guys care. Wanted to get that off my chest. Like I said, it's rare that I get to talk about Kentucky winning a major football. They beat a top 10 team. I couldn't tell you when they beat a top 10 team. The last time UK. They're competitive in the SEC, which is fun. They're not bottom of the barrel, get beat up, get punching bags for the rest of the SEC anymore. They're actually really, really interesting. So something to watch. I think they play LSU next week. And then they get Georgia, which Georgia and Bama just look like they're outclassing everybody else right now, from what I've seen. All right, so that's my take on college football. That's not what you're here for. You're probably here for NFL. I think one of the things that I'm going to do, so couple programming notes actually before we get into the thing. So as of October 1st, the Twitch Sports Accelerator program kicked off. My part of it kicked off. So as of October 1st, officially started the program, which is fantastic. The one thing that I do have to do, and I need to get this prepared actually so that I don't forget. I know Austin and Austin. I think it's Austin. Austin typically keeps me honest to make sure ads get rolled. So as part of the Sports Accelerator program on Twitch, they basically say, hey, we're going to give you some resources, some people to talk to be able to go and improve your stream and do some better things and help you grow. Basically, it's an opportunity for me to use some Twitch resources to try to get to partner, basically. And the benefit of that is all the resources that they give. The downside of that is that one of the requirements of the program, and it's not necessarily a downside, but is that every hour I have to run a 1-minute ad. So I meant to do it on the intro because that helps and that actually changes the timing of everything. I'll have to remember to do that next time around. But it does mean that I've got to run ads. Hopefully you'll stick around through them because we're just going to blow right through them and then keep on trucking. The good thing is if you are subscribed, then the ads don't pertain to you. So not a problem, which is fantastic. So hopefully you're subscribed. You don't have to pay attention to the ads. Oh, sorry. Hopefully you're subscribed. Don't have to pay attention to the ads, but I do need to run those here probably in about 20 to 30 minutes, obviously, because I got to do it every hour. So we'll get 3 in and then we'll be done. And then we'll go raid somebody afterwards and make sure that anybody that wants to stick on Twitch and watch some cool football stuff, we'll find some streamers here on Twitch. So appreciate everybody coming in. Appreciate you hanging out. Appreciate you sticking through it. Let's get into it. All right, let's get into our games this week. If there are any particular games that you guys want to hit, please call them out in chat and I will take them in the order that you guys want to do them or whoever calls them out in chat. If nobody wants to talk about any specific game, then basically I'll go through the order that I have them, which is basically going to be time order for everything. So really looking forward to today's games. Sorry, I need to get logged in over here. And then that way... Oh, the other thing. So one of the things I'm doing is I'm going to try to start putting these on... I'm going to start putting the streams on YouTube. And then I'm going to put the timestamps in YouTube so that people can come back later and listen to anything that they want to see. Because basically everybody is interested in their team, right? And it's hard to know whenever I'm going to get to each and every game. So I will definitely make sure to try to put these on YouTube. I took my first venture in video editing. Man, I now appreciate editors so much. Joe329, good morning, everyone. May all your parlays hit today. Hey, appreciate that. Thank you very much. Agreed to everyone. Good luck on everything that you do today. If you are a bettor, go for it. Crossover, can you talk about Colts Dolphins? Yes, we can. That one probably, we can get through that one pretty quickly, I think, simply because I don't think it's probably not the most exciting game for everyone to talk about. What I will say is that I'm interested in seeing Jacoby Brissett because for me, Brissett looked pretty solid last week. As we talked about, Brissett basically willed the Dolphins into a really good game. Into a really, really good game. And let me make sure I get this up here. We'll pull Indianapolis Colts. And if you can't see that, let me know because I can always make it bigger. That's what she said. That's what he said. So Jacoby Brissett actually looked pretty phenomenal last week. Super excited to see what he can do today, simply because they look like a better offense with him in the game. They have a little bit more consistency in the run game with Jacoby Brissett. They clearly have a better passing game with that. Joe, the weather might be a factor. That's in Miami. I haven't noticed the weather actually. It's supposed to be windy. Interesting. Well, that just means that they're going to run it. They can run the ball. Broken Clouds, 83. It's only 2 miles per hour now. So it's not too bad. If it gets windy, basically they're going to end up having to run the ball a little bit more, right? It makes it a little bit more challenging. So for me, it's basically can Brissett stay out of making too many mistakes today? Because to me, I think Miami is the better team all around. The Colts are bad. The Colts are really bad. The defense is bad. They've got all these. They've built their team. They built their defense. Stun, welcome in. Appreciate the follow. The Colts have basically built their defense to be a bunch of small guys running around the field that should be able to tackle. Problem is they don't exactly know where they're going. And one of the things that scouts love to say is it's great if he's fast, but if he doesn't know what he's doing, that just means he's running himself out of the play faster, right? So the Colts don't look like they know what they're doing on offense. Carson Wentz can't play on 2 ankles, tried to play on no ankles last week, and ended up showing that he is, basically become a statue in the pocket. So Marlon Mack, is it Marlon Mack? Yeah, Marlon Mack basically requested a trade this week. Said, "Hey, I'm not doing anything here. So, you guys got Jonathan Taylor. You're running Naheem Hines out there. I'm not really getting a lot of clock. Send me somewhere where I can be effective." And I mean, honestly, I feel like he's earned that to a degree. They put Quentin Nelson this week. They put Quentin Nelson on IR this week. What other? They've got it, and they're dealing with a ton of injuries. Obviously, my take on the Colts is this: put Carson Wentz on the bench, put him on injured reserve, sit him for 4 games. That way, he's not going to play 75% of the snaps. They're sit him for 4.5, 5 games. That way, he's not going to play 75% of the time, and you're gonna downgrade that pick that you're giving to the Eagles for which you traded for him. So Quentin Nelson's out. Carson Wentz, he's questionable, but he played last week. No reason to think that he won't play this week. Jonathan Taylor is questionable. He did practice in limited fashion, but he's probably going to be good to go. Rock Ya-Sin is out. Who else? God, they have a monster list of injuries. JJ Nelson is out. Yeah, T.Y. Hilton's on injured reserve. Like they're just so banged up right now. There's no reason to think that Indianapolis can win this game, in my opinion, because I think Miami is actually a fairly solid football team. Miami should be 9-8 or so this year. I think the Colts are more like a accidentally win 1 or 2 games type of team right now. They've played to the level of their competition, but the issue is that they're just not that good. They're not good enough. I love Frank Reich as a coach. I think he's made a couple bad decisions in terms of going to get quarterbacks that he probably shouldn't have gone and tried to get in Phillip Rivers and Carson Wentz. And I think it's going to hurt him, and it could end up costing him his job because they've now traded away a good amount of future resources for a quarterback that can't walk. And it's kind of like Wentz to me is a lot like Big Ben, but he's like poor man's big. He's like homeless man's Big Ben, right? Like he can't move. He's a big guy. He used to be able to do a little bit of stuff with his legs. He's still going to try to take those chances because that's what's in his DNA. He just doesn't have the weapons, doesn't have the offensive line, and he doesn't have it in him anymore. So do you think Miami's D can dominate Indy's O today? 1,000%. Yep, absolutely. Because that Miami defense, they're not terrific up front. However, I think they're going to look very good today. They love to blitz. One of the highest blitz percentages in the NFL. I think they're gonna get after Wentz today, knowing that he can't move, and they have a really good set of defensive backs to be able to cover in the secondary, and that's gonna be a problem for Wentz today because Wentz loves to take chances. I could see Indy having 2 or 3 interceptions today, and that's if Carson Wentz stays into the game too long. If Easton gets into the game, it changes the dynamic. But I actually think it's probably better if Easton gets into the game for the Colts because at some point you've got to know Carson Wentz isn't who he needs to be right now, and whether that's the case of him being the long term answer or not, we don't know. But he's injured, he's broken, and just not doing what he needs to do. So on that particular game, I'm going to take, and I need to make notes of these. On that particular game, I'm taking Miami -2, and I think that's an easy one. I think that's one of the easier picks of the week. Probably one that I would consider a lock. I just don't think Indy's that good. And the problem is Indy. The one question that I have about making that pick is Indy has shown that they will play to the level of whoever it is. Joe, I don't understand his loyalty to Wentz. So remember, Frank Reich basically went to Chris Ballard and said, "Hey, I need a quarterback," and they gave him Phillip Rivers. They signed Phillip Rivers, and then they finally said, "Okay, well, Phillip Rivers is retiring. We got to go get somebody else." And Reich said, "Hey, I can make Carson Wentz. He can be our quarterback." And they went and they traded a conditional first round pick plus some additional picks for him. And now Reich has to be tied to him. He has to be loyal to Wentz because if he made that call and he's wrong, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad. Super, welcome in, brother. Sorry I'm late night for that Auburn win. Hey, we were talking about so Auburn beat LSU, Kentucky's got LSU, Kentucky beat Florida last night. Like it was a good night. It was a bad night for Florida coaches, both current and former, but sometimes you just got to take the L. I mean, it was fun for a while for the former coach, but it probably wasn't fun whenever he got home. So that is Miami Indy. Yeah, I just don't Indy's played. Here's the thing. We now know that Seattle's defense is bad. And Indy couldn't score against them. They did hang with the Rams, though that 27-24 looks a lot closer than what it should be. And then they didn't really do much against Tennessee last week. They're not a good football team. So I don't see what people see in Wentz. Well, here's the thing. We talk about you have to trust your coaching staff and you have to believe in these guys at least a little bit. And so we have to understand that like Frank Reich is probably a good football coach, probably knows what he's talking about whenever it comes to quarterbacks because he's continuously seemed to make mediocre quarterbacks look solid and look good. But he went after Wentz and said, "Hey, I really want Wentz. I think Wentz is the guy. Let's go trade some very high picks for him." Now he's tied to him, and it may end up costing him his head coaching spot in Indy. So he'll be fine. He'll go back to being an offensive coordinator somewhere. Maybe Leftwich gets hired. The Bucks can hire him, and maybe Leftwich goes to be a head coach somewhere next year, and we'll take Frank Reich as our OC, and we'll be just fine all over again, which is great. Got sacked more than Rivers all season, and it's just week 4. Yeah, he can't move, man. I mean, like we use the term statue in the pocket. Like Wentz last week was literally a statue in the pocket. Like there was one time when he was trying to move around, and you could just tell that every time he went to shake and turn and move, that ankle was just not responding. And it's both of them. So, I mean, I would say take Indy at your own peril, but I feel like this is a Miami lock. It is in Miami. Miami's a good defense. I don't see the Colts putting up a ton of points, especially because that O-line is bad and they're so banged up right now. So everything points to Miami taking this one, and I don't think it's particularly close. All right, let's see. Let's get into what game do we want to go to? We want to go back up to the top. Let's see. We can roll through Washington football in Atlanta again. Let's see. Washington and Washington and Atlanta. So it's interesting because this line actually moved. What was it the other day? I think it was no, it's +1. And what is it now? It is +1, or yeah, +1.5 for Miami. So it's moved towards Washington, which feels right. I think Washington is probably the better all-around football team here right now. Bad Atlanta O-line. Yes, super. I do think Atlanta does have a shot because the Washington defense has not been terrific, specifically the secondary. So we talked about this a little bit on Thursday. The problem with Washington hasn't necessarily been their defensive line. They're still getting a good amount of pressure up front. They're not consistently getting to the quarterback and bringing him down, but they are getting a good amount of pressure still. So Atlanta has shown that they can run a quick game, a quick passing game, so they can get the ball out to help protect their offensive line. I'm just curious. My biggest issue is how do you figure out how to get the ball down the field? Matt Ryan, there's a lot of talk. A lot of people have been saying Matt Ryan's done. Like he's doesn't have it and he doesn't look good. I think Matt Ryan looks fine. He doesn't look great, don't get me wrong, but I think he looks fine. He's doing what Arthur Smith is asking him to do. They're just trying to coach their way around and work their way around a really bad offensive line. So I'm interested to see today how do they plan around that Washington offensive line. What they need to start doing is they need to start finding a way to push the ball down the field and get some larger chunk plays. They're not good enough to just that offense is not good enough to just be able to dink and dunk down the field the whole way. Cordero Patterson has looked solid. He's been a big player in the offense because of that. He can get yards on the ground. He can get yards in the air. He'll take those 5-yard swings or he'll take that swing route and get you 7 or 8 yards out of it. Make a guy miss here and there, and he can get you first downs. But man, you've got Kyle Pitts. You've got to start pushing him down the field, stressing out some safeties, and that's going to help your underneath game. As of right now, I don't think the Falcons have a target over 20 yards in the air right now. And I think they're the only team in the NFL that you can say that about. So, like, they're not necessarily built to go down the field, right? Calvin Ridley's not that type of receiver. Gage is hurt. Who else is injured for them? Gage is hurt and was out last week. Not that that's a major problem for them, or at least a major loss for them. He's out again this week. Josh Andrews, a center, is on IR. Let's see who else. AJ McCarron's on IR. Okay. But yeah, basically all of the people on their injury report are out. So nobody really all that significant other than Andrews and Gage, I would say. Yeah, they've got to figure out a way to push the ball down the field. And this is the type of defense that you want to be able to figure out how to do that, because they've shown that they can't cover on the back end. The secondary has been awful this year. And you can tell me Kendall Fuller is great all you want, but like this secondary as a whole has been terrible, as Charles Barkley would say. I mean, just terrible. So Kendall Fuller hasn't been good. William Jackson hasn't been good. Landon Collins hasn't shown up whatsoever. And I'm waiting for Jamin Davis. Jamin. I'm waiting for the rookie linebacker out of UK to show up. He's playing so slow right now. He looks like he's having a hard time. He's either having a hard time processing it, or he's just playing with zero confidence whatsoever. He's either not confident in what he's seeing, or he's actually not seeing it very well. Because like him and JOK in Cleveland basically should be able to do some similar things. The issue is JOK is playing like, hey, I'm going to play 100% speed, and if I make a mistake, so be it. Jamin's saying, hey, I don't want to make a mistake. I'm gonna diagnose this a little bit more, and then I'm gonna be late to the play, and then he's making the mistakes there. So I would rather him play much more like JOK. Um, it's just their Bostic has been bad. Everybody but that front four has been bad. Kendall Fuller has been not the Kendall Fuller that we want to see. I wouldn't say that. I would say he's looked like an average cornerback at best right now. So if you can get past that front line, they do. Atlanta does have a chance. Yes. The problem is Atlanta also doesn't have a defense themselves, and they really don't know how they want to play right now. Grady Jarrett's the only decent player on that team, and he got truck sticked by Daniel Jones last week, which isn't ideal, obviously. Dante Fowler Jr. has played okay. Yeah, there's just not a whole lot going on that defensive side either. Like it feels like they basically resigned to this being a rebuilding year under Arthur Smith and said, "Hey, we're not going to go out and really try to get offensive linemen and really try to make this team better. We're happy just trying to improve incrementally in small amounts, and we'll be fine. And then we'll go and we'll look at 2022." Which, I mean, when you're in a division with the Bucks and the Saints, you can kind of, in context, it kind of makes sense. Issue is like you want to improve as much as you can every single season, not just, hey, we'll take what we can get this year and we'll figure it out next year. So yeah, and I think Washington's offensive line is really good. One of the better ones in the league. They get Curtis Samuel back this week. Terry McLaurin's still playing well. Heinicke, he's going to be very up and down. We talked about this a lot. He is a younger Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's going to take some shots. He's going to be aggressive. He's going to push the ball. He's not afraid to throw it all over the field. Problem is every once in a while you're going, what the hell was that, Heinicke? And he did not play well last week. He had a bad Fitzy game last week. So here's the thing, if I'm Washington, Heinicke might have 20 throws in this game. And Antonio Gibson probably should have 30 rushes. Like, just put the ball on the ground. Antonio Gibson has looked amazing. For me, I want to see him just run every down until they figure out, like, hey, this is working. And oh, by the way, he's fantastic in the pass game too. So really super excited to see how Washington does this. I just feel like Washington all around is a better team right now. Atlanta may have a better coaching staff in the future, but they're not there yet, right? Like we talk about this every week of in talking about matchups, you can talk about O-line, D-line, wide receivers, cornerbacks, quarterback secondary and those type of things. But you also have to talk about coordinator to coordinator. And I think Arthur Smith against Jack Del Rio is a W for Arthur Smith. I think Scott Turner as an OC for Washington. I don't even know who is Atlanta's defensive coordinator. Oh, it's Dean Pease. That's who it is. I was like, wow, I had a brain fart there for a second. Right now I think it's Dean Pease isn't doing anything. So and he doesn't have the players to do anything either. So I'm taking Scott Turner in that all day long. So it's kind of offenses probably have the better matchups today. The issue is that Washington can get pressure and Atlanta can't. So I've got to lean Washington in this game. Washington's favored by 1.5. It would have been nice to have the one. It did move a point or half a point towards Washington, but I still think that they win probably by a field goal or more. Atlanta beat a not great New York Giants team, and that's all that they've won. So there's no reason to expect anything different. So I will take Washington minus 1.5. All right. So that's that game. Let's go Houston. But we're really starting with all the bad games. How about we get to let's do Dallas, Carolina. So Dallas, Carolina is probably one of the tougher matchups that is hard to call this week, because what do we really know about what do we really know about Carolina right now? Like they've played well. They're rated number 1 in overall DVOA. Um, Sam Darnold looks like a competent NFL quarterback, which is fantastic. I think a lot of that is scheme, and what they're asking him to do. Um, but they've beaten the Jets, the Saints, who were really banged up and ended up being a really good matchup for them. So it's important to call that out. It's not like they went in and beat a really tough Saints team. No, they beat the Saints team without half of their defensive line and without their second. And basically, the Saints didn't have their entire secondary in that particular game. They had I think they had 2 out of their 5 starters. So, and then they beat Houston. So they're not really, they're not rolling over really good teams right now. This is their first real test. And we know that Dallas is a damn good football team. And it turns out they're actually not bad on defense either. We knew the offense was going to be good, but they're not that bad on defense either. Trayvon Diggs has played really, really well. There's a lot of people saying, is he the next, lockdown corner? I think he's played really well. I don't think he's played that well. He definitely looks like a number 1 overall corner. Don't get me wrong. I think that he's proven he can hold down that slot. I just don't know if he is of the lockdown variety. I think that's a term that I want to reserve for the top few cornerbacks in the NFL. Dallas offensive line has proven to be pretty solid. Their weakest spot is going to be at center. That's the one place that I expect. So Carolina as a defense has looked phenomenal. Those 4 guys up front, and Burns, Jones, Fox, and Reddick, are remarkable. They've looked terrific. And those guys have helped Shaq Thompson and Carter look really good behind them as well, because we talked about it a little bit last week of those guys, those front 4 help keep those linebackers clean, which help them get to the football faster without having to deal with blocks. And when that happens, your linebackers can look really, really good. Levante David and Devin White are phenomenal linebackers in their own right, but they are also beneficiaries of having a really good front 4 as well. So it's the same thing here in Carolina. Shaq and Carter are pretty good by themselves, but that front 4 helps keep them clean, and that's going to be a very big part of this. We'll see how much clock Henderson gets today, the newly traded cornerback for Carolina. Do they think that they can get him in the game and he won't get beat? It's a little bit different than, say, like a Richard Sherman coming in, right? Like, it's not the same. And anybody that compares the two doesn't really make sense. EJ Henderson is a young player. Richard Sherman is a grizzly old vet who was one of the smartest cornerbacks whenever he was playing before. This is a very multiple offense where they're going to ask the cornerbacks, or defense in Carolina, where they're going to ask the cornerbacks to play a lot of different things. The Bucks probably won't ask Richard Sherman to play much outside of off man and some zone. And so which plays to his game. These cornerbacks will move around a little bit more, and they'll ask him to do a little bit more. So, and the Bucks are playing, the Patriots. So they're playing Nelson Aguilar and Jacoby Myers and a couple of tight ends. This is Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, running out there. You don't want to run a brand new cornerback out there who doesn't fully grasp the playbook yet against receivers like that. So we'll probably see some EJ Henderson today. I'm curious to see if he goes the full snap count. If they do, I don't know. Phil Snow, the defense coordinator for Carolina, really fantastic. This is the matchup of the week. The coordinator matchup of the week to me is Kellen Moore against Phil Snow. Phil Snow has been amazing. Kellen Moore has been on actual fire in terms of his play calling. And then Dak at the line on top of Kellen Moore's play calling has been really good too. Because Kellen's calling in and saying, hey, here's what you got. Here's the play that you got. And then Dak looks and says, hey, the look against this particular play looks really, really bad. Let's go to a run, or let's go to a pass, and changing it at the line, which has been fantastic for them and worked out really, really well. As all quarterbacks do, he tends to change run plays to pass plays, not vice versa, but he will call a run play when it's needed. and it doesn't matter who's in the backfield, Pollard or Zeke. Zeke looked probably the best game I've seen him play in a few years last week. Um, Pollard looks like he's got more juice, which is nice. But both guys are viable. They can use both guys in a number of different ways. Kellen Moore is going to love having that option. Schultz had a couple big catches, looked good last week. It stinks that they don't have Michael Gallup. If they had Michael Gallup, I would say that this probably isn't a game where Carolina could manage on defense. But I do think that they're going to figure out ways to get pressure. Curious to see how much they leave the running backs in on this particular game. That was a big strategy for Kellen Moore in week 1 against the Bucks of leaving Zeke and the running backs in and the tight ends a little bit too to help with that leaky O line. Because they thought that the Bucks were going to get pressure. Do they do that a little bit today? Probably. And I think they do simply because one of Phil Snow's favorite things to do is to move those linebackers into the interior on the line. And what that does is it forces the offensive line to make a decision pre-snap of who's blocking who. And they may walk both of those linebackers up there. But what it does is it forces those 5-0 linemen say, all right, we have 6 guys. And what we have to do is we have to indicate who's blocking, who has who to block. And if it's 5 on 6 and there's potentially 6 coming, we've got to know who are we letting free and who is the quarterback responsible for. Dak has to know that, hey, if 6 come, I'm responsible for Shaq Thompson on the outside. If 6 come, then maybe I've got Jermaine Carter on the left that I've got to be accountable for. He's typically accountable for the edge guy because they block inside out, right? Or that's the priority of the blocking. But if you paid attention to any of the conversations that I've had with Jeff Schwartz this week on Twitter, it's up to the O-line to decide. But even if they decide, they may not block it correctly, because if they say, hey, we're sliding right, and there's 2 guys lined up over top of the center, and the center goes right, but then that guy doesn't come and the other guy comes, now the center's got to go left. And then at that point, if it's a delayed blitz from one of the guys, it's a free shot, free open. Phil Snow is fantastic at scheming those up. We'll see how that goes. It's one of the reasons why I think they're going to have to use some running backs in pass protection. And against this secondary, that is a little bit banged up because they don't have JC Horn. If they had JC Horn, I would feel a lot better. I will say Sam Franklin's played pretty solid this week or this season. They do have Dante Jackson, Bouye. They'll probably get Henderson in. Cody Chen's playing in the slot. It's hard to know what they're gonna do in the secondary here. I don't know if they're gonna press man like they want to do. Or even a little bit of off man against these particular receivers, because Cooper and Lamb can beat you in a number of different ways. And Phil Snow is going to scheme up that pressure. And even without scheming up, they're probably going to get some pressure. Hassan Reddick has been really solid. Morgan Fox has played well. And Derek Brown on the interior has been really good too. It's just really hard to know how they want to scheme this up. And Phil Snow is going to be super multiple. So how does Kellen Moore scheme around what Phil Snow wants to do? And how does Phil Snow adjust to what Kellen Moore and Dak are doing at the line? Because that's going to be part of it is that defense for Carolina is going to have to execute without Phil Snow at once that snap happens, because at one point, the audio and the helmets go off, and then it's up to the linebackers to be able to identify the changes that Dak's making at the line and then adjust their defense accordingly. Because what comes in from Phil Snow may not necessarily be what they need to play once Dak makes that change at the line. So, fascinating chess match here. It could go back and forth both ways. Schematically, probably the most interesting game of the weekend, because there's just so much that could go on between Kellen Moore and Phil Snow in this particular game. That's why I want to spend that much time talking about it. When you're talking about the Cowboys on defense, I think the Cowboys have shown they're solid enough. For the Panthers, on offense, we've talked about it. That the left side of that line is bad. And if they line up if Dallas lines up Micah Parsons over top of Cam Irving, um, and even if they move him inside over like Dennis Daly, those two guys are going to have a problem blocking a guy like Micah Parsons. I would expect them to do that, and no team has really tested it a lot. Houston tested a little bit and had a little bit of success with it. I think Cowboys are going to take that pressure point, put their thumb on it, and continue to press. Robbie Anderson is probably the like standout guy that has a solid game this week because Trayvon Diggs is probably going to get DJ Moore, and he showed that he can cover a DJ Moore type of receiver. Terrace Marshall Jr., interesting game for him. He could have a solid game as well. It depends on how the Cowboys want to how they want to match up against these guys. So think of it like this. Dan Quinn loves to play that Seattle cover 3 that you remember from like the Legion of Boom. The problem is he hasn't had that type of those type of players to that level so far. And outside of Micah Parsons, the Cowboys haven't really gotten that much of a pass rush this year. I get it. DeMarcus Lawrence has been out. Randy Gregory missed a few games. He's back this game. It's gonna be really interesting to see how the Cowboys utilize Micah Parsons, who like he had a massive game against the Chargers, but he was over Storm Norton. Had another really good game last week, so he's the real deal at that spot. And I don't think he ever goes back to being an off-ball linebacker. Like, let him be a defensive end and rush the passer. Maybe you move him inside. Maybe you move DeMarcus Lawrence inside at times, flip him around, create some chaos inside. Like, I think that's going to be really good for them. I don't know that the offensive line for Carolina can manage up front. Micah Parsons should have another good game. Again, I'm curious if he lines up on the defensive left or defensive right. I think he needs to line up over the left tackle on the defensive right side and just give Cam Irving hell. How does the one question I have is without CMC, if they had CMC, I would give Carolina more of a chance here. But without CMC, how do they deploy Hubbard and Freeman this week? And do they think that they can keep up? Right? Like, do they think that throwing the ball is what they can do? Which I could kind of see. Dan Arnold would have been really useful for this game, actually. Grizz, appreciate the compliment. Thanks, man. Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at this just going, I don't know exactly how Carolina can attack this defense. It's basically got to be Robbie Anderson or Terrace Marshall Jr., probably your two biggest threats. Do they want to run the ball a good amount? Maybe that's their best option. Yeah, I mean, the more I think about it, the more it feels like this is a running game for them, where they don't want Sam Darnold to get too crazy and throwing the ball, and they want to run the ball a good amount today. Probably going to see 20 to 30 carries between Hubbard and Freeman, even if they're down. I mean, obviously, game script determines, right? So if if the Cowboys get way up, then that just completely torches the chance of a running game from Carolina. So do they try to control the ball and manage that way? I would think so. And it's in Arlington. Yeah, here's the thing. I got to go Cowboys on this. I think the Cowboys are just too good of a team. I love the Carolina defense. Don't get me wrong. You know what? I'll do this. Maybe not. I was going to say I'll take Carolina in the +4. But the issue is that I don't think they have enough offense to keep up again. Like the Dallas Cowboys defense is good enough. I don't think Carolina's offense. I think Carolina is schemed up as well as anybody. I think they're schemed up as well as anybody. I just don't know that they have the offensive line to be able to manage this game today. Carolina is number 1 in defensive DVOA. 12th in offense. Dallas is 6th in offense and 15th in DVOA. I mean, I feel like that's probably a little low for them. They're probably more like 12th, I would say. I think they're above average, and that says that the Dallas defense is average. The reason that that's a big deal is because Dallas has had to face some really good offenses so far. Man, I just, you know what? I like Carolina a lot. I think that they're not quite fool's gold, but I don't think they're as good as what they've looked. So I'll take Carolina. I'll take the +4, though I'm not happy about it. I kind of want to go Cowboys just because I think they're still going to be able to score points, but I don't know. I do like the under on this game because I do think that both of these defenses are probably better than what it looks like. And at 51.5, it's still 51.5, right? Oh, I didn't scroll down. What am I doing? Yeah, -4, still 51.5. Yeah, I'll take Carolina +4. All right. That one's definitely a fascinating game for me though. Like that one's the one that I want to go back and look at the all 22 of after the game to see how Phil Snow and Kellen Moore played against each other or deployed their personnel against each other. So we'll see. All right, let's go back to Houston Buffalo. We'll scroll back up here. Houston and Buffalo. All right. Buffalo is -17 right now. It started out at -16. I think it was -16.5 at one point this morning, if I remember correctly. What do we have? Yeah, it was -17.5. So it's actually moved back towards Houston a little bit. It may feel like a lot. I'm not gonna spend a ton of time on this game. It may feel like a lot for Buffalo to be -16. If this were -16 in Houston, it would be hard for me to take it. Without Tyrod in the game and Davis Mills in at quarterback, you got to take that into account. And then the other thing is Buffalo has gone, what was it? 43-21 last game, and then they went 35-0 in the game before, and they've done it against better teams. So they look like they're mopping up easy teams right now, and it's hard not to take this. Josh Allen, the whole regression line and is he regressing it's just gonna have to wait. Coley can't manage a game and timing of a game to save his life. He can't manage fourth down. He can't manage third down. He just continues to make super conservative decisions, and that's hurting his team. If Houston had Tyrod, this would not be -16. But if it were, then I would probably take Tyrod and the Texans. There's now some rumors that Deshaun Watson that they're considering offers for Deshaun Watson. And I know it's funny because they were like, there was a report that they received two or three firsts in an offer for Deshaun earlier in the year, and they said no to it. And now they're seriously considering offers for Deshaun Watson. And I'm like, so first of all, nobody offered 3 firsts for Deshaun Watson. Not after all of this stuff came up, right? Like once all of these allegations came up, no team's offering 3 firsts. You might get a first for him, but outside of that, you're probably going to get a first, maybe some change on the back end, maybe a third, maybe a conditional third that moves up to a second or something like that. But nobody's going out of their way to trade for Deshaun Watson with these allegations. Because as soon as you trade for him, the NFL could say, oh, sorry, he's suspended for a year. The only reason the NFL has not suspended Deshaun Watson right now, like at this point, is because they may not have formally agreed, but they know that the Texans aren't playing him. They're not making him active. They're basically paying him to sit the bench. And whenever a team or Houston says, hey, we're going to start playing Deshaun Watson, the NFL will swoop in and say, no, that's not good for us. You're not playing him. So that's the Deshaun Watson situation. He's not coming back anytime soon. I've been saying that since the offseason. He's not getting traded. There continues to be reports that he's getting traded. Again, we used to sit in the office at One Buck Place and scroll through Pro Football Talk and look at some of the stories that were reported on there. Not necessarily just by Pro Football Talk, right? Just across the NFL and about the Bucks. And we used to laugh and go, "Where the hell did they get this? How on earth did they get this?" Because that is completely the opposite of what's going on here about certain things. And there were stories that just never really came out either about certain stuff that went on behind the scenes that I felt like would always be reported. So just because it's written in the news doesn't necessarily mean it's accurate, right? So Deshaun Watson, he's not coming back anytime soon. I'm going to take Buffalo and the points here. I know that's a lot of points, but based on recent history, Buffalo minus 17 still feels like it's not that big of a deal to me. All right, Detroit, Chicago. Detroit continues to be and I keep forgetting to add stream markers. I want to add stream markers, that way I can make it easier to go back and edit these down and throw them on YouTube for you guys and know when I'm switching from game to game. So let me go through and add this. I need to get a stream deck. That's what I need. All right, so Detroit, Chicago. Chicago's -3. Yeah, -3. Over under 41. So we'll talk about Detroit and then we'll get specifically into Justin Fields. Before we go on, Grizz, if he goes on the exempt list, I figure they will move to suspend him for as many games as he will be on the list after reinstatement. So the way the commissioner's exempt list works is it's effectively a suspension. It's a paid suspension that ensures that if you are suspended, those games that you're held out count towards your suspension. So if they suspend Deshaun Watson for a year in, say, week 8, if they suspend him for a season, then that's 17 games. Let's do that. Let's say they suspend him for 10 games and they do that in week 8. After week 8, that means he's really has 2 more games to be suspended for before he can then play. So if he spends 8 weeks on the exempt list, those count towards his suspension. So he's got 2 more weeks that he needs to serve on suspension if they actually suspend him. However, what's happening right now is it's not counting toward his suspension. I was actually curious if Deshaun Watson would try to force the situation to go on the exempt list so that those games would count toward his suspension, but he hasn't forced the issue, which means the NFL could still suspend him for a season, and he's not on the exempt list yet. So that means that season would start when they actually hand down the suspension. They would not include his sitting out as time served, so to speak. So that's the tricky part about that Deshaun Watson situation. I'm surprised he and his agent hasn't pushed to go on the exempt list. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. But none of these games are counting towards him being suspended. So that's going to be a unique situation. There is precedent set for him not playing. I mean, it's the Big Ben situation. It's the who's the other one? Zeke situation. Like, guys can get suspended without formal charges being against them, and because the NFL can do whatever the hell it wants. If you make the Shield look bad, it's conduct detrimental, and you can get suspended for that. So, not surprised to see him not playing. Like, we knew that he wasn't going to be active, and the Texans seem happy to pay him. Well, they have seemed happy to keep him on the bench and keep him inactive and continue to pay him. And he's been fine being inactive and getting paid, which, if you could go and take a 6-month vacation and still get paid at your job, that would be fantastic, right? We'll see. My question continues to be, when they're talking about trade offers, think of it this way. When you hear reporters talking about, oh, trade offers, this is there's a potential for him to be traded. They're listening to trade offers. First of all, 90% of that stuff is fluff. It's either one team trying to position to get other teams to make them offers. It's almost never that teams release ahead of time what they're trading somebody for until it's done, until it's basically like in the bag. And if you hear that a team is taking offers, it's basically them saying, hey, we're open for business. Anybody that wants to come make us an offer, go for it. And then when they're like, hey, we're taking offers, and we had 3 first rounds that were offered 3 months ago that we didn't take. Like, that's them trying to set the anchor for the negotiation at 3 first rounders. Because if somebody comes in and says, hey, you know what? You didn't take 3 first rounders, I'll give you 2. They would be completely happy with that. The issue is if I'm the Miami Dolphins, so to speak, who have been rumored to really want him, supposedly Stephen Ross really wants him, the owner of the Miami Dolphins really wants Deshaun Watson. If I'm the Dolphins and I'm Stephen Ross, how can you look at this and go, yes, that's the guy that I want to be the face of my team, and I'm willing to trade multiple first round picks for that guy to be the face of my team in the midst of this trial and 20 plus allegations of what he's accused of doing. But we're going to bring him in and we're just going to face the PR backlash for it. Like, how do you can't do that as an owner. Like, your best option, and I think everybody in the NFL sees this, is to wait it out. Because the Texans are in a tough spot. They're going to either have to figure out, what can I trade him for, or how long do I want to hold on to Deshaun Watson? So, all while having just invested in Tua, I mean, that's sunk cost right now, crossover. It's sunk cost. I think they know that Tua is not the guy. And I think the more Brissett plays and shows them what an offense could look like with a quarterback that can actually throw the ball and consistently complete passes, I think he's going to be fine. That would be nuts. Even Watson fans are waiting for the other shoe to drop. Right. Like, you just can't trade for a guy like that and make him. And the thing is they may trade for him, and then they're going to have to send him through like sensitivity training and like do all this like PR stuff that they're going to have to do for Deshaun Watson, which is effectively admitting like that Deshaun Watson did something wrong. So it's just a really bad situation. And as long as you can wait it out as a team, because Deshaun Watson's not playing this year. Like, everybody knows that Deshaun Watson's not playing this year. So whether that's through sitting out because he doesn't want to play in Houston, or if he does get traded, he'll immediately go on the exempt list, probably on the commissioner's exempt list, which is effectively suspended. So no one's interested in trading for him right now. You might see a trade come draft time, maybe after the draft leading into next season, potentially, because the way NFL teams look at it is, if I'm trading you a first this year, then that counts as a first, right? Like, for this upcoming draft. If I trade you a first next year, so in the 2023 draft, then that basically is a second for this year. Like, that's the points assigned to those particular picks. So, yeah, that's one of the more fascinating situations to me. Got a little bit off of matchups, but it's cool. It's that type of stuff. The business of football is fun, and how teams have to manage this, right? Because for me, I look at it from a philosophy perspective of, how does your overall team build a team, structure a team, build a culture, hire head coaches. What's your scheme going to be? What's your talent? What kind of talent do you want? And then how do you go out and execute on Sundays, right? Like, it goes from the top all the way through. That's why I wanted to name my Twitter NFL philosophy. So, it was a good chat though. All right, let's get back onto the games. Omasari, welcome in. Good to see you back. So we talked about, so far we've got Washington, Atlanta. We're taking Washington -1.5. Houston, Buffalo minus 17. Carolina and Dallas. Taking Carolina +4. No, sir. Thank you, Omasari. Glad you're here. Indy, Miami. Taking Miami -2. That feels like a huge lock for me. Let's get through Detroit, Chicago. All right. So with Detroit and Chicago, we'll talk about Detroit, and then we'll get into the whole Justin Fields thing all together. So with Detroit, the interesting thing is they continue to fight in games. It's hard to count them out of games. They're not a particularly talented team. They aren't the fastest. They're not great at covering, and they can't get pressure up front. Outside of that, they're okay. Like, they have a good running back. They have a mediocre quarterback. Not much else I could say particularly positive about the Lions. So, I mean, they're going to be one of the worst teams this year. They're going to be probably picking top 5. They may scrape out a win here or there against somebody that they potentially, could get a win against, and that could be this week. By the way, like, it's not like it's not like this is a particularly challenging matchup for the Lions. And if they can get after the quarterback and make Fields actually think about it and keep him in the pocket, they have a shot at winning this. Penei Sewell is playing really well at left tackle now. Frank Ragnow is probably one of the best centers, if not the best centers in the league. He's playing incredibly well. Man, they really need Trey Flowers and Michael Brockers to get after it. Like, they are who needs to have a good game today. And that's not just getting after Justin Fields, but that's keeping him in the pocket. If you let him beat you with his legs, it makes it a lot harder to be able to get after it. So to win against this offense, Chicago's offensive line is bad, so they should have their opportunities. For Chicago, last note on Detroit. I'll say this every week. DeAndre Swift looks fantastic. Jamal Williams looks really good. If they can run the ball, they can they can keep games close all season long because they can shorten the game and they can mitigate their risk on offense by being able to run the ball and be effective in doing so. So, and it's a really big help for Goff too. For Chicago, the defense actually isn't bad. Chicago's defense isn't bad. Like, this isn't a team that's terrible on defense. I'm curious as to what their actual DVOA is. Yeah, defensive DVOA, ninth. That feels a little high, but their offense is terrible. Is just bad. So here's the thing. If you want to blame everything on Matt Nagy from last week, then you didn't really watch the game, because Justin Fields was bad. I mean, he was bad. He couldn't get rid of the ball. He wasn't seeing the field. He wasn't seeing protections. Like, and the other thing that the Browns did a good job of, and they said this after the game, like, I think Myles Garrett said it in an interview. He said the Bears didn't move the pocket and move Fields around as much as what they thought he would. Now, what I saw is that when they did do it, the Browns did a really good job of keeping Fields in the pocket and doing what he was supposed to do, and keeping him there. Like, the Browns schemed against that and did a really good job. Plus, Myles Garrett is just a freak of an athlete and one of the few people in the NFL at the defensive end position or along the defensive line that can actually chase Justin Fields down. So Justin Fields has to see the field better. He has to see what's going on. He's got to be able to see he's got to be able to see both the line in front of him without actually looking at it. And it may sound weird, but he's got to see the picture of the secondary, and he's got to know what's happening before it happens. Like, he has zero anticipation right now. Absolutely none. And I'll call out Matt Nagy and his inability to put motion and change formations as a reason why Fields can't see what he needs to see early on. Because when you start motioning guys pre-snap, then that motion will then indicate zone or man from the defense. Plus, it's going to end up forcing the defense to rotate into their final position before the snap, which is also going to show you where are they potentially blitzing from. What are they playing in the secondary? What are the linebackers doing? Like, you're going to get a lot of information every time you move a guy across the formation, whether it's a tight end, a guy in the slot, moving a guy from the outside, whatever it is. And oh, by the way, you can do that to create positive matchups on offense too. Because if you see that they're playing zone and those corners aren't moving, then all of a sudden you can put your running back out, send your running back out to the outside. And now all of a sudden you've got the best corner on a running back and you move your best receiver, Allen Robinson, into the interior. Now all of a sudden Allen Robinson gets the third best cornerback, or you get him on a safety or a linebacker because it's zone. And then all of a sudden you got a positive matchup for Justin Fields to be able to use. He should be able to identify that pre-snap. Bears, zero motion. Zero. I don't recall them ever doing a single motion across the line of scrimmage last week. So that's on Matt Nagy. However, after the snap, Justin Fields was not good. Justin Fields was bad. He held onto the ball too long, didn't see the secondary, didn't get a clear picture of what he was doing. When he does throw the ball, he's incredibly accurate. Like I'm fascinated by how accurate he is. Terrific with his legs. He can pick up first downs. Everybody knows that. Strong enough arm to do whatever he wants on the field. But man, they've got to help him out because he's not to the NFL level right now in terms of being able to diagnose a defense and operate with anticipation. Because here's the thing, in the NFL, and you may know this, I don't know, we've got viewers of all NFL education right now. If you see something in the NFL and then you throw it, so you see a receiver open and then throw it, by the time you throw it and the ball gets there, he's covered. It's done. Like, you're late. And that's what's happening to Trevor Lawrence. And that's why he continues to get picked off, especially whenever you're trying to throw the ball down the field. If it's short, not as big of a deal. However, in the NFL, you've got to see that this guy's coming across the backside of a linebacker in the middle, and you've got to throw into that window as he's coming into that window. And the ball's going to get there at exactly the right time, ahead of the linebacker seeing that you're throwing it there, as well as ahead of the wide receiver actually getting there. It's got to get there at the right time, right? Justin Fields can't make that throw right now. He couldn't make it last week. He hasn't shown an ability to do it so far in the season. So it's on everybody. It's on the offensive line. It's on Matt Nagy. It's on Justin Fields. And from last week, I don't have a lot of hope. I don't have a lot of hope that there's a lot going on here and that Justin Fields can make this happen. I think it's the right move to put Justin Fields in. It sounded like they had a little bit of a wobble in terms of what they were going to decide to do. I think you run Justin Fields out there against a really bad offense, against a really bad Detroit Lions team and defense, and especially secondary. I think you run him out there, see what he can do. If he has a good week this week, terrific. But he needs to dominate. We're not talking about just like have a mediocre game, but he needs to go out and dominate, because if he just has a mediocre game, he shows you nothing. He needs to go out and dominate so that you can say, you know what? I'm going to leave you in for the next week. If he doesn't do that, I don't know how you leave him in. And Matt Nagy can say, and can use the excuse, Andy wasn't fully healthy. We're going to move back to Andy. Hey, Andy's still not healthy. I think we need to go back to Nick Foles, and he can save a little bit of face for both him and Pace to go back to a quarterback that can actually win them games. Ooh, almost forgot. All right. Sorry guys. I've totally forgot. I need to run a 1-minute ad as I'm a little bit over. Appreciate you guys hanging through this. If you can, I'm glad I put that thing back up because I totally forgot. Hang through this. If you're subscribers, you're still going to be able to you're not going to have to roll through the ads, but for everybody else, hang tight just 1 minute for me. Sorry. All right. For the subscribers, actually, one of the things I want to do is, I don't know how many of you guys are in here, but anyways, for any of the subscribers that are in here right now, one of the things I want to start doing is I want to figure out a way of getting you guys my picks earlier in the morning. Like, I want to have picks to you guys by 9 a.m. on Sunday mornings. So I'm going to be working on that. So just one of the advantages to subscribing, instead of having to wait and hear everything on Sunday morning and not actually having an opportunity. So maybe I'll send them via email, maybe I'll send them via DMs on Twitter or some way through Twitch. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Gold Glover, welcome in, man. Appreciate it. Are you streaming right now, Gold? I know you usually do sidecasts on NFL Sunday, so I'm interested to see. I may have to hit you up again whenever it comes to 1 o'clock because I'm going to go watch the games. All right. Appreciate everybody who hung through that, and we're back. I was saying that so for subscribers in the future, I'm going to try to figure out a way to start getting picks to you guys before 9 a.m. Make it one of the benefits. That way, if you are using the picks for your actual betting purposes as a data point, whatever it may be, at least you'll have them early enough to be able to make a decision with them versus sitting here listening to me talk about them all the way up until kickoff. So that's what we're gonna do. All right. We talked about Fields, Matt Nagy. It's on pretty much everybody to figure it out. They can go back to Dalton and Foles after this week and still be able to save face. They'll be able to use that and say Dalton wasn't ready and Dalton's still hurt and it's time to go, because at some point Nagy's got to start thinking about his job and how does he actually go and win games, because he can't just roll Fields out there and continue to lose games and expect to keep his job, especially if Fields doesn't look great, because I don't know who in that front office, whether it was Nagy who asked for Fields or Pace who thought Fields was the guy, but somebody's going to have to be held accountable for that particular choice. And let me just say, there are a lot more discrepancies between coaches and GMs and personnel staffs inside of buildings than we ever hear about, because those guys will, when high priority jobs and huge jobs are on the line, people begin to get defensive of what they're doing, and it's very easy to lay it off on the other guy, right? It's very easy to say, you know what, if I'm a head coach, you know what, I didn't have the players I needed. This roster is terrible. And the GM and personnel guys will say, dude, we have good players. You just can't coach them. Like, we've given you athletic, very good players, and you guys are wasting them. And that is a massive struggle that happens inside of NFL teams that we never hear about. So I'm actually really surprised that we don't hear more and more of those things. I've also learned that beat reporters don't always report on everything. Like, we feel like those beat reporters should, but they don't. They actually will have favors for the team. All of the beat reporters knew that Richard Sherman was coming to Tampa Bay to visit. Every single one of them in Tampa Bay. They all left little bitty breadcrumbs, and you can go back, whether it's Roy Cummings or Stroud or Almond or Jenna Lane. Everybody was basically like, don't be surprised if the Bucs start looking at veteran cornerbacks. And it was all around like the same 24-hour period. And I'm like, guys, why don't you just say it? Like, you all know it. Like, just somebody internal of the Bucs said, hey, this is happening. We can't tell anybody this yet. Please don't report this. But so you know, like, Richard Sherman's coming in for a workout or coming in for a visit. So, or it could have been Sherman's agent too. So they all knew. They were all ready, like, waiting for that, which I thought was fascinating. So just some little behind the scenes stuff. Just because you read it doesn't mean it's true. And just because you don't read it doesn't mean it's not happening, because there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. Grizz, part of me feels they took QB to save their own skin, Pace and Nagy collectively. I mean, the problem with the logic there is that when you take a quarterback, it starts to speed up the process. It starts to speed up the time clock. All right, you've got your quarterback, go for it. We're going to see it with Frank Reich this year. Frank Reich, phenomenal coach. But they're going, hey, you got Wentz. What are you doing with him? Nothing? Okay, well, you wanted him, so you either got to figure it out and start winning games, because we just gave up a good amount of picks, or we got to look at something else here, right? Like, when you take that quarterback, it starts speeding it up. And I will say, and this is another reason why I'm for sitting or quarterbacks that are picked early, is once they're picked, that doesn't necessarily start the clock. It's when they start playing. Like, if you lose and you're sitting your first round quarterback, people are like, okay, we still have something to look forward to. It's the hope of, hey, maybe this first round quarterback is going to be good next year, right? Like if Fields goes out today and just bombs, people are going to lose hope. If they had just sat him and just let him learn all season long and then waited until next year to put him in, Nagy probably gets a better shot at it next year. And then if he can't do it next year, then he's out. If he puts Justin Fields in and he bombs today and Fields doesn't look like the guy, now you're starting to look at whose fault was it, Pace or Nagy, or is it both? And we just need a clean house. Like that's how the NFL works. And these guys know this, and they're going to start playing defense of their own jobs probably fairly soon. Probably after today if it doesn't go all over well. Scott, welcome in. Good to see you back. Scott, seen this in Miami with beat reporters as well, such as who made certain decisions coming out years. Yeah, exactly. These guys know what's going on. It's just there's only certain things that they can report on. And trust me, their teams will say, hey, like you can't do this, or you're not going to get another interview or a lead from us. And we're not going to feed you anything. It's rare that they threaten to pull credentials. They will go that far sometimes, but it's got to be something super egregious. J. Dean, thanks for coming in. Thanks for following. Appreciate it. Yeah, so we'll see. But you can, it's just funny because I see these things happen on Twitter and I'm like, oh, Spidey sense, it's tingling. Something's going on. Let's talk about it. And it's something that I feel like just kind of the casual fan wouldn't necessarily pick up on. All right, so with Fields, you guys know me. I make evidence-based decisions, and I have zero evidence that the Bears can do this today. I do think the Detroit offense could potentially be good enough to score a few points on the Bears defense. Bears defense isn't bad, but I do think that the Lions offense should be able to move it. They're 22nd in DVOA. Like, they're good enough to move it. So here's the thing. I'm definitely going to take Detroit. Hey, by the way, I'm still 3-0 so far. One upset pick a week. Still 3-0 so far. I'm going to go, as of right now, I'm going to go Detroit +3. And they may end up being my upset pick of the week. So we're gonna hang that out there. All right, we are we're about halfway through the show. We are 5 games in for this particular one. We have 3, 4, 5, about 10 left. So we gotta pick it up a little bit. Let's get through a couple quick games. Giants, New Orleans. New Orleans goes as the Giants go. Super. Detroit is my upset pick too. Awesome. That's fantastic. It makes me feel a little bit better, at least, about it. I don't think it's going out on a limb. I feel like the Lions have played fairly well against good teams. Now, I will say last week against the Ravens, the Lions should not have been in a position to win that game. They got their ass kicked. If Marquise Brown catches 2 of the 3, any one of the 3 passes that he should have made or caught, the Ravens win by 14 probably, instead of a last second game winning field goal that sets the record for longest field goal ever kicked. So I think that's really awesome. Hey, Jay Dean, appreciate the sub. Thank you very much. Very, very much appreciated. Welcome to the family. Crossover. This hurts as a Bears fan. My soul is crushed if we lose today. I'm going to be heartbroken. Here's the thing. I tend to try to be a positive person. I like to look at the positive side of things. It's better. And hey, this is perfect because we're going into the Giants game next. When your coaches look really bad, it means that you're closer to getting them fired and getting on to the next one. Like in getting to a better place. It's kind of like a bad relationship. Like the sooner you figure out you're in a bad relationship, the sooner you can be like, shit, I should have moved on a long time ago. Why did I waste an extra season with them? I could have spent my whole summer, my whole winter, out there dating, finding somebody else, having a lot more joy in my life. So, yeah, it's better off in the long run. I promise. Yeah. So it's hard for me to think that Nagy's the guy right now. I cannot hitch my wagon to Nagy. I'm not really sure about Pace. There's been some questionable calls there as well Though if they stick with Pace, I can understand. Nagy's definitely not the guy. Pace can't figure out that offensive line. They need to hire somebody else to figure out what the hell to do about that offensive line. Been saying this about Gettleman for years. Somehow he's still there. The Giants, the Giants just don't operate the way that they should. And we've talked about it a lot here. Like the way that they make decisions is like they're still in the 1990s, from ownership all the way through the current coaching staff. So we'll see. Crossover. The only problem is that our next head coach isn't up to me. It's up to the McCaskies. Yeah, I mean, again, evidence-based decision making. They've shown that they can't necessarily make a good decision on who they're hiring. So why would you trust them now? So we'll see. I mean, at some point they got to get it right. I mean, a squirrel gets finds a nut. Like it's kind of like one of the things I've heard about Seth Wickersham's book. It's Better to Be Feared. That's basically the biography of the Patriots over the last 20 years and the Belichick era. Basically, Belichick, he ended up choosing the Patriots because he basically had a choice between the Jets and the Patriots. And he chose the Patriots because he felt that the Patriots were going to let him set the culture and do what he needed to do as a head coach, whereas the Jets were not going to allow him to do that. And it was something that he had experienced previously of, if the ownership's not on board, then I'm never going to be empowered to do what I need to do. And so he went to the Patriots. Kraft said, you go do what you do. Kraft had meddled before that, but Kraft also got burned. And then eventually said, hey, you know what? I'm going to be hands off. I'm going to sit in and I'm going to listen, but I'm going to let you do what you think is best. Even if I think it's wrong, I'm going to and that's what good leaders do, right? And Kraft had to learn that. And then Belichick came in and eventually obviously turned that into the dynasty that it has been, or was. I think it was. I think we have to say was at this point, right? Turned it into the dynasty that it was. And now we've moved on from that dynasty. But it starts with ownership. And if you don't have a good owner, what do you have? Yeah. So, all right, let's get into, we said New York Giants, New Orleans. So with the Giants, like I said, it's fantastic to move from the Bears to the Giants because there's not a whole lot of differentiation there. Bad decisions, don't really know the Giants don't really know how to manage their own team, to evaluate their own team. They think they have a roster full of terrific players. And just like the Bears, they don't. Just like the Bears, they don't have a great offensive line. Daniel Jones has been the highlight of the team so far and was probably the one thing on there that I'm like, you can't win with this guy. Turns out you probably can't. And his progression has been fantastic. Last 1, 2, 3 years, like he's grown every year in a similar way that Josh Allen has. So for today in particular, I think Daniel Jones is going to have a problem because the defensive front of New Orleans is much, much better than any team that he's faced so far. They're starting to get healthy up front. They're getting healthy on the back end. That Saints defense is absolutely legit. I would say they're a top 5 defense rolling into a top 3 defense in the NFL. New Orleans got some stuff to figure out on offense, right? They've got to figure out how they want to deploy Jameis. Right now, they're basically making Jameis into a dink and dunk quarterback, and that's not the best way to do it. I do think that with the amount of man coverage that the Giants play, New Orleans is going to have plenty of opportunities to throw the ball downfield. Some receivers running wide open. The Saints are going to be able to block them up front, even though they have had a few. They have had a few injuries along the offensive line. I'm looking now to make sure. Yeah, it looks. Wait, where'd you go? Armstead being out hurts. Eric McCoy's out again. Thomas so close to coming back. And they already have another tackle on IR. So not as strong along the offensive line as they typically have been. But I don't think it matters that much against a bad Giants defense. I know like Bradbury and was supposed to be the guy that all of a sudden, once we get Bradbury, like, I just how do you evaluate a team and be like Jabril Peppers? That's who we need. That's what we need on this defense. I don't understand anything that the Giants are doing. And it's not like me saying I didn't understand what the Panthers are doing. I said I didn't understand what the Panthers are doing because what they did last year doesn't fit what they drafted and the players that they signed in the offseason. So it felt like something different was happening. So I can't really project what that is. I project that there's going to be change. And they made a massive shift, especially on defense from what they did last year to what they're doing this year. They're changing up the offense a little bit here and there. With the Giants, I don't know what they're doing because none of it makes sense because it's all fucking stupid. Like that's where I'm at with the Giants. And they continue to lose games because they make poor in-game decisions between third and fourth down decisions, between field goal decisions, between what personnel they want to run out there. Like to think that Bradbury is going to be the guy that solves your problems and that Jabril Peppers is going to be the guy that solves your problems. That's I don't. It's not. You're not going to be able to win a ton of games with those guys. I get it. You're trying to go up against a team like the Cowboys that has 3 phenomenal receivers, but you have no pass rush up front. Your offensive line isn't good. There's so many things that are good. I will say Kadarius Toney, we talked about this the other day. Kadarius Toney looks like he could be a really good player. They need to get him the ball more. He looks like the most dynamic player on this offense. More than Galladay, more than Ingram, more than Barkley. Barkley still looks like a shell of what we thought he could be. And with no offensive line, here's the thing. If you have a base level of skill players, like you're just normal, just every average set of skill players, and maybe that's what this is. Maybe you could call them average, below average, but if you're just average and you're in your set of skill players, if you have a good offensive line, they get raised way up. If you have a bad offensive line, they get dropped way down. Like you take that skill set and then it is multiplied in one direction or another based on how good that offensive line is. They're literally a multiplier for the offense. So you're going to need playmakers. You're going to need running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, and a good quarterback. But a good offensive line literally multiplies better or worse. And so if it's a negative multiplier, which this offensive line is, those guys aren't going to get an opportunity. So now you've got to figure out a way to work around that. Negate that multiplier and at least let your guys go. Kadarius Toney type of guy, throw him a screen. He's going to make 3 or 4 guys miss before he gets 2 or 3 yards, which is unfortunate because they can't block anybody and they don't know how to run an offense. But Toney looks phenomenal in the 2 or 3 plays that he gets. So I'd love to see them get him the ball some more. I think he could end up being the best wide receiver on this entire team. I don't know that you can give Saquon Barkley the ball very much on offense because the O-line isn't good. He doesn't look as spry. There's certain times when he finds a hole, when a hole gets opened, and against bad teams, like holes are going to open because they lose their gap discipline on defense. So like if they were to play like the Cardinals or something like that, who have terrible gap discipline on defense, Barkley's going to break a few 20-yard runs. And he's going to look like he has a great game because he busted 3 20-yard runs that were just poor plays by the defense. He's not going to create offense at this point for them. And they need that because the offensive line has been bad. So I'm going to take the Saints. Again, one thing I'll say about the Saints on offense, don't be surprised if you see Taysom Hill inside the red zone, especially inside the 10. If Saints get down inside the red zone, Taysom Hill becomes a quarterback. I really think that that's the case going forward. So be prepared, Jameis Winston fans or anybody that potentially is in a 2-quarterback league. Jameis may end up missing out on some opportunities if he doesn't score from deeper. And I think he's good enough to do so. But in a game like this, I don't expect the Saints to get super aggressive in their play calling. They're going to continue to be super conservative with Jameis, make sure he doesn't turn the ball over and let it ride. I have no faith in the Giants. I'm going to take New Orleans minus, they're still minus 7.5 right now. -7. Ooh, even better. I'll take New Orleans -7. here's the thing. I don't think the Giants are like a 2-win team, but I think their coaches put them in that territory. So we'll see if they end up going like that. Tennessee, we'll go through Tennessee and the Jets real quick as well. And then we're going to start getting into some really good games. Tennessee, New York Jets. Tennessee looks like a complete team again. The problem with Tennessee, and I would bet that the line's already moved to -5.5 for Tennessee. The reason for that, AJ Brown and Julio Jones are both out today. I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters in the least. Be nice for them to have them. I think I'm going to take Tennessee +5.5, and it may end up moving to 5. Tennessee is just a better overall team. They're going to put some pressure on Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson is going to need to figure it out. Zach Wilson, he got called out by his offensive lineman last week. Like, hey, we need to block better up front, but he needs to get rid of the ball too. 100% the case. But he's also now being helped out by his offensive coordinator, who is calling plays down the field instead of, like, how about we get our rookie quarterbacks into a rhythm? How about we call some 5 yards, some swing passes, some screens, some stuff to like get them going, get them moving. Stuff like what we saw with Urban. He got it. Like, they got it on Thursday night. Like, they were running the ball well. They were taking those opportunities. They weren't trying to push the ball down the field to get it started. Like, get Trevor in a feel for the game. And then all of a sudden, like, they got an offense moving. They get a turnover. They're up 14-0. And it's like, what? Where was this the whole time? Like, this is what we needed you to do the whole time for Trevor. And then all of a sudden in the second half, they're like, nah, let's just go back, right? Let's do what we did the first 2 weeks. So the Jets aren't there yet. They haven't figured out how to use Wilson, how to get him going. Wilson has had some issues of getting rid of the ball. He's not seeing the field clearly either. Again, rookie quarterbacks, it tends to happen. But until I start to see some progression in how he's seeing the field and his ability to get rid of the ball, plus an offensive coordinator that needs to be able to get him some help in terms of the play calling. And again, we talked about this with the rookie quarterbacks. Like, it's not just on the coaches. Rookie quarterbacks have to help it, but a lot of it is on the coaches. And the Jets defense isn't good. There's just not a whole lot of. I mean, it's a young team. Maybe they get better next year, but I mean, until Mike LaFleur starts figuring out how to call an offense, I don't see Zach Wilson progressing. I'm going to take Tennessee and the 5.5 points. And I might even wait to game time to see if that moves closer to 5, is what I would say. All right, let's go back to Cleveland, Minnesota. Cleveland, Minnesota, one of the most fascinating games of the week to me. I think Minnesota's good. Cleveland, we know, is good. They're kind of mirror images of each other. Like, Baker is like the younger, probably slightly better version of Cousins, who can throw it downfield a little bit more. Can move around in the pocket, can get the first down with his legs. That's not what you would prefer for him to do. I think Minnesota has better weapons at wide receiver. While the Browns have a better offensive line than the Vikings do. Both teams good run game. Not a whole lot of defense on either side. The Vikings, they will allow a good amount of points in the first half, and then they tend to sort of adjust, and they tend to tighten the screws a little bit in the second half. They did it to the Seahawks last week. I still think that they should have won that Arizona game. I don't think Arizona. I still don't think Arizona's that great. Just again, it comes down to the inconsistency. Kirk Cousins is fantastic. Has been fantastic this year, as much as that pains me to say. And Thielen and Jefferson are phenomenal at wide receiver. It doesn't matter who's in a running back, whether it's Madison or Cook. This feels like a 60-point game to me. It feels like a 60-point game. I feel like this is another 30, 32 to 31 type of game. I don't know. I don't know if I could pick the Vikings, though. I will say that the line moved It was -3 for Cleveland. Now it's -2 for Cleveland. Did I need to come back up. Oh, it's now -1 for Cleveland. Sorry, it was -2 for Cleveland and it moved to -1. This one's a tough game for me because I think I'm higher on Minnesota. Sorry. I'm higher on Minnesota than most people are. That Cleveland defense is pretty brutal, especially Myles Garrett. But again, the Minnesota offense has been so good at getting rid of the ball. I'm curious how many sacks. I don't have PFR open. Okay. I'm curious how many sacks Kirk Cousins has taken this year. Because I feel like while he's seen a decent amount of pressure, I feel like he hasn't taken a ton of sacks. He's sacked 3 times against Cincinnati, once against Arizona, once against Seattle. So yeah, and Seattle doesn't have a go. Yeah, so this could be another like. Well, I mean, here's the thing: you would think that like Chandler Jones probably would have had 3 sacks against this offensive line. So I gotta go with Cleveland. I gotta go with Cleveland to cover the -1. Though it would not surprise me to see Minnesota upset them today. Like, not at all. I think all around the Browns are a better team, and they have a potential to score in different ways than Minnesota does. Both run games are going to be interesting. Both run games are going to be very interesting today. Yeah, Cleveland -1. I'm fascinated that line moved towards Minnesota because I feel like I personally am on the opposite side of that discussion, and in thinking that Minnesota is a good football team, everybody else seems to say no, they're faking it. But we'll see. This will be a big game for them. Interested to see how this game turns out. This will be a game that I hope is one that I can watch. Is one that I can watch today, kind of casually, and then, like I said, like the Dallas Carolina game would be one that I want to go back and watch the actual all 22 of. All right, so that's that. Let's do KC Philly. So KC Philly Chiefs lose last week to the Chargers. I think there's a lot of people asking what's wrong with the Chiefs. And I think the question isn't what's wrong with the Chiefs, it's how good are the Chargers. And I've also heard a lot of talk about Patrick Mahomes and his turnovers. Here's the thing: Patrick Mahomes has always played this way. He's just been very fortunate. Now, that's not a knock on Patrick Mahomes. It's just when you play with the aggressive nature that Patrick Mahomes does, mortal quarterbacks, human quarterbacks that are not Patrick Mahomes would typically have a much higher turnover ratio than what Patrick Mahomes has. Patrick Mahomes has consistently beaten the odds and has said, I'm better than these guys and I can to be at this level. And you're seeing a little bit of a regression simply because luck, right? Like, perfect example, throws to tight end over the middle, wide open. He's a little bit late on it last week. Goes off the tight end's hands. Asante Samuel Jr. has a phenomenal diving catch for an interception on Patrick Mahomes. His no-look passes, usually the no-look works. It helps hold people off. There's an actual fundamental reason, logical reason for why he does that, because it can hold defenders in a spot and give him larger windows to throw into. And he's good enough to throw off platform into those windows because they're big enough, because he's holding the people where they are with his eyes. So that makes sense. And he's gotten away with it. Last week, didn't get away with it. Had a no-look interception. So he's got to be more careful about what he's doing. Don't get me wrong. Like, that's where he needs to be more careful. However, we also know that he needs to, he's still a phenomenal quarterback, still one of the best in the league. let's continue to address it as so. They got the running game going a little bit last week. I think that was more of because they were playing the Chargers than anything else. I do think that they will see some success, maybe not as much as what they saw this week against Philly. It's KC's favored by 7. Are they still favored by 7? Yes, still favored by 7. This feels like a game where KC should win by 14. Philly defensive line, typically they would be able to get enough pressure on Mahomes, just those 4. You can't blitz Mahomes. Every time you blitz Mahomes, he's going to torch you. You got to leave people out in coverage or else it's going to be a pain. It's going to be a problem for him. They should be able to get some pressure on Mahomes today with just 4. I think they're going to have to blitz to do it, to be able to get consistent pressure. That's not good. Again, I keep saying they can be beat on the back end. The secondary is not locked down by any means. When you flip over to the offense, Philly feels like they're going to go from running the daylights out of Miles Sanders to last week when they said, oh, we ran Miles Sanders too much. We ran the ball too much in that game. We need to throw it more, and got absolutely destroyed by the Cowboys. And now I feel like they're going to go back to, hey, we need to run Miles Sanders. And I feel like they're going to run him 20 to 30 times this game. Intentionally, not like just because the games are like, they're going to work on getting Miles Sanders the ball this game. And I think that's smart of them to do in every game, but I think it's especially smart against the KC game. Again, we talked about the KC defense. A lot of man coverage, a lot of aggressive play. Tyrann Mathieu loves to fly all over the field. However, they are not fundamentally sound. They can be beat. And if you can take advantage of that, and if you can beat them one-on-one in man coverage, you're going to be able to move the ball. KC is going to give up a good amount of points. However, I don't think Jalen Hurts stays in the pocket long enough to be able to take advantage of those situations. I do think that he has been much of a 1 or 2 read and then run the ball. And he's got to hang in there a little bit longer and get through his progression another step before he takes that next step as a quarterback. And with Devontae Smith, he's a guy that can get open against man coverage. So we'll see. I don't think that I think this is a bad matchup for Philly simply because KC does a lot of things that they're going to be able to take advantage of on defense. Like Jalen Hurts puts the ball up into the air too much. You saw it last week. There was and I forget who was commentating the game, but when Jalen Hurts puts the ball up on the go route and he underthrew the go route and it ended up being an interception, that is something you see over and over again. Most of the time it falls incomplete. Good teams, good man coverage teams will turn around and catch that ball. Tyrann Mathieu will be able to fly to the spot and catch that ball. So I'm expecting a decent amount of turnovers from Hurts today. Look for a pick or two. Unless they just go full on Miles Sanders and limit what Hurts does and use Hurts more in terms of like, hey, we're going to let Hurts run the ball more than pass. Like if Hurts throws 15 to 20 times today, I feel like that's the perfect game plan for the Eagles. But I'm still going to take KC. I think KC is going to put this game out of reach and they're going to force Jalen Hurts to have to throw a bunch. And that's just going to create a snowball effect. So I'm going to go KC -7. All right. Any questions? Herbert has looked awesome. Herbert looked like a young Aaron Rodgers is what he looks like. Hey, I'm gonna pop in, do one more quick ad, and then we should be good for the rest of the stream. Appreciate you guys hanging through this. For you subscribers, yes. So, it's really interesting to see KC kind of evolve. They're 1-2, bottom of the division. They're still gonna end up near the top of this division. They're probably gonna be rooting for Baltimore in this particular. Well, I don't know. Are you though? Because I mean, Baltimore is going to end up being the Baltimore-Denver game is going to have a big impact on KC probably towards the end of the year, unless Denver just proves that they're not legit because they haven't played anybody because they had a second preseason. with the start of their 3 games. So we'll see. Let's see. We'll go on to Arizona and LA Rams next. Appreciate you subs. Thanks for hanging in there. You guys don't have to listen to ads. And I will say, one of the cool things is about running ads. It means that people don't get pre-rolls whenever they come in, and so they don't have to listen to the pre-roll ads whenever they join the stream, which is nice. It's helpful. So sorry you guys had to take one for the team there. I appreciate it. All right, let's get on to Rams and Arizona. This is my game of the week. This is the one that I'm most fascinated in, simply because I think the Rams are a number 1 team. I think Arizona should probably be closer to a mid-level team. What's that super? When I put this on background audio, it says I left the chat, but I'm still here. Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, because it shows you're not here right now. Well, that's fine. Appreciate you're hanging around though, just listening. It'd probably be better to do that anyways. It's not like I'm, dancing on screen or anything. So, I watched a good amount of Arizona tape last night during the Kentucky-Florida game, and I realized, I said this on Thursday, like the inconsistency with Arizona, it really kind of, it doesn't fit with what I believe, with what my philosophy about how to win in the NFL is. They have built a defense that is super aggressive in how they attack the ball carrier, both in the run game and as wide receivers. And I don't think they've been consistent. They leave massive gaps in the run game. They have zero gap discipline. Those linebackers get so far out of position. The secondary does. Like, people, like, Minnesota was ripping off 10 to 15 yard runs. Like, it was no problem. Like, it was probably their most effective play all day long. I was surprised Minnesota threw the ball as much as they did, and they probably should have run it more because they allowed Arizona to come back. But that defense is not sound. It's kind of like the Chiefs. It's not sound. They can be run on. And then on offense, Kyler Murray has been fantastic. The problem is he bails the offense out so much. They're not particularly good at running the ball. And then Kyler ends up bailing out the offense. Issue is Kyler bails out the offense often because he's the one that puts them behind too. Because he scrambles around and tries to do too much and then ends up having to throw the ball away on first down and ends up being 2nd and 10 or even 3rd and 10 or something like that. So for me, it's hard for me to get behind a team that I know isn't the most sound team. And I think they've been very fortunate in winning their 3 games. And this feels like the time when teams start to figure out Arizona under Cliff Kingsbury. It was something we talked about early on in the year. Like, Arizona comes out, thumps somebody first game of the year. They play well for the first 2 to 3 games, and then after that, it kind of feels like, okay, well, this is the Arizona team we're getting, and they kind of fall off the pace that they had originally set at the beginning of the season. I don't know if it's because Kingsbury just doesn't have it in him and can't figure it out once film gets out there, or if teams adjust and then Kingsbury and his team doesn't adjust back. I need a little bit more evidence to be able to figure that out. But Rams are sound all around. Great up front, great in the secondary. Offensive line, I thought was going to be a problem, was not a problem. They played fantastic last week against the Bucks. Bucks could not get pressure for nothing, and it allowed Deshaun Jackson to just continuously run deep. And the Rams missed it twice, finally hit the third one. The Rams had Deshaun Jackson open multiple times and only hit him on one of them. Like, it could have been a much bigger game for D-Jax. Cooper Kupp had a big game. They couldn't figure him out. Like, the Rams are a complete NFL team. And it's gonna be hard for me to pick against them unless the line just feels completely out of whack. And I don't think Arizona's as good as they've looked. I will take the Rams -4 here. I could be wrong. Again, I continuously underestimate this Arizona team every single week. And it could be another week where I do that because Kyler, they get into positions and then Kyler somehow brings them back 7, 8 times. And they can't keep winning that way. Like, there's a point where your luck runs out, right? Like you can play roulette and you can hit one, 3 out of every 5 times, but if you keep playing, your luck's going to even out when it's a large enough sample size. And I think that's what I'm seeing here from Arizona. I think that they should have lost that Minnesota game. And I just don't think they're a sound football team. So based on that, I'm going to go Rams -4. I feel like that's probably one of my more. I feel good about that pick because I do think the Rams are just that much better. It's just the volatility of Arizona, or what I feel is volatility with Arizona, is something that I just can't get past. And something that I feel like it could end up being. Now, I will say, I learned this week. I don't know if you guys know this, but with DVOA, if you go to the main page, if you scroll all the way to the right, you can look at variance. And it's week to week variance, not like play to play variance. But the the Cardinals are 14th in variance. So they're about average. That says that they're not that volatile week to week. However, I feel like they're volatile play to play. And they're just getting lucky enough. So we'll see. I really like the Rams in that game, though. That one feels really good. Let me send out one more tweet. All right, let me send one more tweet. I need to schedule these. That's what I need. I need to do a better job of planning chat. And then today, because the Bucks don't play till Sunday night, I'm actually going to be able to do. I'll probably mess with my overlays and stuff a little bit more today. It'll be fun. All right, Seattle, San Francisco. San Francisco -3, 51.5 for the total. Seattle defense bad. Seattle offense good. San Francisco not as good as what I thought they were. Like that's the high level of this game. I do think that San Francisco has been the victim of an inaccurate Jimmy Garoppolo so far. And it's weird because it's not what I thought Jimmy G would be. I thought that Jimmy G would actually be a very accurate quarterback. He typically is. When the throw is there, he usually hits it. If it's not there and he forces it, it's usually pretty bad. But he gets you what is there, and that's really good in a Kyle Shanahan offense because Shanahan gets you a lot. Like Shanahan can create a lot of a lot of opportunities for a quarterback just off the run game and the different things that they do. So if Jimmy G can hit his shots, and I think he's going to have a bunch today, because I think Seattle's defense doesn't have the players that they need. Lockett is questionable. Oh, we're inside the hour. I want to see, should we look at inactives? Let's talk inactives real quick. See if there's any surprise inactives for some of these games. All right. Philly Minshew is inactive. I'm surprised by that. Lane Johnson, Mailata. Sucks that Mailata's not going to play. Just another big piece for them. Andy Dalton inactive today. So Andy Dalton's still hurt, or they just were never going to play him. Rashad Perriman out, Tayshaun Gibson out. Dalton out, Lane Johnson out. Colts, Jacob Eason is out. Anthony Barr still out. Dalvin Cook is active. Not that that's a big deal because Madison has looked phenomenal for Minnesota. Miami, no big surprises. They still can't get Greg Little going. Inactives. Jordan Poyer, we knew that he was going to be inactive. Matt Breida. F.A. Obata is still out. Vernon Butler out. Not great, but it's not like they really need the full onslaught of everything. Brett Hundley is the number 2 for Indianapolis today. Yikes. Lockett is playing. Okay, that's good to know, Amasari. I didn't realize that. Trey Flowers is out. Charvarius Ward we knew was going to be out. It doesn't look like a ton of surprises. Shaka Tony. What a great name. Not as good as Cavassier Smoke, the running back for Kentucky. Cowboys inactives. Ties out. That's not great. CMC, Deontay Brown, Michael Jordan. Yeah, man. Phil Hoskins. Carolina's that not great. Yep. Okay. No big surprises. It looks like from the early games. The late games and the late games and the Monday night game are the ones that will be interesting, I think, in terms of inactives, because those could really be the ones that are impacted. Guys like Josh Jacobs for the Monday night game, whether he plays or not, could be a big thing for the Raiders because they really need him, and they need him at full strength. It's not like if he's active and not full strength, that it's not going to be a big deal. Like, he needs to be at full strength. So, all right, where are we at? Seattle, San Francisco. So this is a super fun matchup for me. Seattle's defense, so they're not great at rushing the quarterback. They leave a ton of holes in the intermediate and in the middle of the field. They're still trying to play that cover 3. They don't know what to do with Jamal Adams. They've got to be able to blitz Jamal Adams to get some more pressure on the quarterback. Adams is going to be an interesting chess piece today that they're going to have to figure out how to help with the run. Is Elijah Mitchell playing today? That was the other thing. We won't know till later. Yeah. My question is if Elijah Mitchell goes, I think that's a big thing. Sermon hasn't looked particularly fantastic. Kittle, obviously, potentially being out could hurt for San Francisco. Mitchell is out. Okay. I know he was suspected to be out. I didn't know if they had actually claimed that to be out or not. So if Kittle's out, that's a pretty big blow. Although I still feel like Shanahan's going to be able to scheme around it. But at some point we have to wonder, when does the impact of players being out start to affect even the best play callers like Shanahan or McVay and those type of guys, and Kellen Moore, right? They can always try to find a way around it, way to scheme around it. I feel like the matchups in this set up very, very well for San Francisco. I don't foresee any part of this where Seattle ends up being able to stop the San Francisco offense. The only thing that has stopped the San Francisco offense this year so far is Jimmy G missing passes. Jimmy G missing open receivers. He has been high on pretty much everything. Ball placement has not been terrific. He's just got to be better. I still think they can run the ball because they're as good as anybody at scheming up the run, and they're gonna use fullbacks and tight ends and shifts and motion all over the place, which is going to be super, super helpful. I think San Francisco should have a field day against Seattle by dinking and dunking into the short and intermediate, as long as Jimmy can hit those guys. Because those receivers are going to be in space. Like I could see Deebo Samuel, especially if Kittle's out, having a big game today. Seattle's 24th in DVOA on defense. The San Francisco defense hasn't been terrible, but it hasn't been what I thought it would be either. Yeah, they're 19th in DVOA. I feel like San Francisco's defense has got to step it up because you can't allow, Aaron Rodgers to go down the field in 30 seconds and kick a field goal. Like, you've got to start getting some pressure on the quarterback. They're still playing the quarters defense that they love to play, which it has its benefits for what their personnel is, but they also are going to have to manufacture some pressure and not let Russ just throw all over them. They're going to have to figure out how to come up and stop the run too, because we know Seattle's going to push and force that against them. So, let me check. I need to check Seattle's injuries real quick as well. Lockett looks good to go. Benson Mayoa is out. Snell is out. Oh, Gerald Everett. That was the one I was looking for. It would be. They really could use Gerald Everett today. I would think that for me, the tight ends would be very important for Seattle today. But without Gerald Everett, I'm not sure that's. They were wondering if he was going to be able to go, but it looks like not. Will Dissly's just not going to be able to get it done. Damn. Yeah, I mean, Russ is going to have to put this team on his back today. Lockett should have some, as long as he's healthy, he should have some space in the middle of the field to be able to work. We'll be interested to see how much they can get DK Metcalf one-on-one on the outside to see if they could get some jump balls to him and some shots down the field. But this feels like another game where Seattle goes run, throw it up top, run, throw it up top, run, throw it, like run, take a shot, run, take a shot. And they've done that in a couple of games this season, and it's worked really, really well. If they can't get the run going, it makes that shot a little bit harder to take. And also against the quarters defense, it could cause some problems too, unless they have some good plays schemed up, right? So the way to get, when you're having quarters and there's four guys that are dropping back deep, the way to get guys one-on-one is put two guys side by side and have one come across the face of the interior guy. So if your guy's on the edge out here and this is the interior guy that's deep, you've got to have that guy come across his face and pull him away from this guy that's still going up the sideline. And it's not hard to do. You just got to have people that can win at the point of attack, and DK Metcalf is exactly that type of guy. Without a tight end to be able to do that, Will Dissly is not the type of guy. They're going to be able to leave like a linebacker on him and not have to worry too much. They may shade a little bit towards DK Metcalf's side. Maybe they potentially go with like a cover 6 towards his side. So cover 6 is two playing quarters and one safety playing half. And I could see them doing that on the side of a DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett should be on the opposite side if that's the case. And let Tyler Lockett win his matchups over there. So I just don't see a good enough game plan coming out of Seattle on both offense or defense. Their defense is bad. So I think with this one in particular, I'm going to go. Man, I thought this same thing last week, and Green Bay's defense just showed up out of nowhere. All right, I'm going to go Seattle, San Francisco. Or I'm going to go San Francisco -3 in that particular game. All right, you still got 30 minutes. We're good. Baltimore, Denver. Denver -1. Again, a really good game here too. Really fascinating matchup. Denver got their second preseason because of playing I heard somebody call it the Frank Sinatra schedule. They got both New York teams in 2 weeks, and then the Jaguars, I believe. Yeah, so they've had a cake first 3 games, first real test, completely different team from any of the teams that they've played so far. Baltimore is going to blitz the daylights out of them. Teddy's had plenty of time to throw. He's been able to sit back there, find some receivers that can get open against man coverage. If Baltimore blitzes, Teddy's going to be able to find those crossers, those in cutters, and open receivers that are going to have a ton of room to run after the catch. So it's going to be important for Baltimore to be able to have some sticky coverage if they're going to blitz today. And I do think that that's what they want to do. Denver's probably going to try to run the ball. They have with both Williams and Ingram. I think they've had a good amount of success there. The real matchup in this particular game comes down to how Denver plays Lamar. And obviously, every team wants to play Lamar to keep him in the pocket and take away his legs and force him to pass because he's shown that there's some inconsistency in his passing. And Denver's built for this. I think Von Miller up front is going to be able to get a good amount of pressure. I think having him in Lamar's face is going to be a powerful kind of, because you have the option to potentially bring him front side or backside. I think bringing him front side would force Lamar to run to his opposite side, right? So it's always easier for a right-handed quarterback to roll to the front side, to roll to his right side, because it's easier to throw from that position. When you roll to the backside, it's harder because you're running this way, but you got to twist and throw your body that way. And it's much, much harder for a quarterback to do. One of the best in the league to ever do it, probably ever to do it, is Russ Wilson. He's a guy that it doesn't matter where you come from. Lamar struggles a little bit more than Russ does, though I would say he's still not bad at that. So Baltimore offensive line has been good enough. Their weakness is right tackle. It feels like that's where Von Miller lines up all day long and brings that pressure from the front, or tries to bring that pressure from the front. And I would expect Denver's going to scheme up pressure from the backside, but it's going to be from the backside interior. So we're looking at like A gap, B gap, not C gap, not outside the tackle. They're not going to, I don't think that's where they want to bring pressure from, because if you're bringing it from the outside, then Lamar's just running up the middle, and that's going to be really hard for them to stop. They do play enough zone where if he escapes to the edges, then you're going to be able to have those cornerbacks and linebackers with their eyes on the cornerback, that they're going to be able to come up and keep him at bay, at least as long as they can tackle. And that's one of the biggest things. Can you tackle Lamar Jackson? Most teams can't. This defense is good enough. They might be able to. So I'm fascinated to see how Denver plays this. Again, I think the pressure that they bring is going to be over top of the left tackle. Villanueva, since switching over there, has been solid. What they do was, I assume Stanley's still out. I didn't check that. Of course not. Man, the list of Ravens that is out is just insane. Marlon Humphrey, questionable. Tavon Young, questionable. Anthony Averett, questionable. Chuck Clark, questionable. Geno Stone, questionable. That's just safeties and corners. Like, that's just the second. Deshaun Elliott, questionable. Let's see. Yeah, no indication of any of those guys, whether they're playing or not. Villanueva is questionable. I haven't heard anything about that. That seems like he's just going to play. Pernell McPhee probably going to be just fine. And then, of course, they have a couple of guys. Marcus Peters on IR. Jimmy Smith not listed. Ronnie Stanley is out. Derek Wolfe being out. Chubb being out hurts. Chubb's probably the biggest one. Them not having Chubb is sorry, I'm thinking of Chubb on Denver. Chubb being out for Denver is going to be painful for them. If they had Chubb, they would have a much better shot at running away with this game. Jackson, Lamar had back problems. I wouldn't anticipate him being out. Obviously, if Lamar can't go, it changes the whole dynamic of what the Ravens would need to do on offense, and how Denver would need to match up, right? Like, we haven't really talked about this a whole lot, where like teams protect starting quarterback information like a little bit over the top. But the reason for that is that if you don't know if you're going up against an Andy Dalton or a Justin Fields, you have to prepare a little bit, because Justin Fields brings a lot more to that zone read and read option game than say an Andy Dalton does. And you have to prepare against those a little bit different, and it forces the other team to spend a little bit more time on those things instead of spending it on situational football, red zone, defensive red, like those type of things, right? Like it makes sure that that they have a little bit harder time planning for the game, and it matters because again, like um, we can go back to the Super Bowl between the Seahawks and Patriots. The Patriots practiced that exact play at the end of the game that Seattle ran. They practiced that exact play and how they wanted to play against it in that situation, and that ended up winning them the Super Bowl. So because of that, like teams want to make sure that other teams are practicing things that may not matter and are wasting as much time as they possibly can. So yeah, so we'll see. I mean, if Tyler Huntley ends up in the game, then Denver's probably winning this either way. It doesn't matter what the scheme is because Huntley's not gonna be nearly as dynamic as Lamar. All right. I feel like Denver's defense is as good, if not better. And I don't know that Baltimore. I don't understand why Baltimore doesn't give Tyson Williams more touches. He easily looks like the best running back on this team. Easily looks like the best running back. I have no idea why they don't. And it makes no sense to me whatsoever why he's not getting more clock or more touches. So hopefully they figure that out. I think Denver's defense is one of the best in the league. I think Denver's for real. Have always thought that they're for real. Nothing happened in the first 3 games to change my mind. Yeah, they played bad teams, but it wasn't like those bad teams got anywhere close to them. They did what they were supposed to do. I will say not having Hamler hurts. The one question I have about Denver is there's 2 questions. Can they run on this Baltimore defense, which is one of the better run defenses? And then 2, if they can't run, are the wide receivers good enough without Hamler, without Judy, to be able to get open? And they have been so far, but they're not going to face a defense like Baltimore. So are they really? And you could question, is Baltimore that good? Right? Like Baltimore played with KC, or so Baltimore played with KC and then ended up in 2 other games where they didn't really feel like, I'm looking at their schedule now, where it didn't really feel like they were really in it, right? All right, so Vegas, lost to Kansas City, probably should have beaten Detroit by a lot more. So I still have some questions about this Ravens team. Crossover. Yeah, Baltimore handing the ball to Latavius and Freeman seems not optimal. Yeah, well, and I mean, we just don't know. Tyson looked good. He had that fumble at the goal line in his first opportunity, and it seems like they let him run a little bit more that game, but really started to pull back the next game as Latavius got more and more time in. But and maybe it's a run, maybe it's a pass blocking thing. Like I've watched Tyson run. I haven't watched him in other and non-running situations. So he feels like the best runner to me, but is he able to be a good pass blocker and all those other things? Those are things that are important for the Ravens. So we'll have to see. I hope they don't plan on having Bell touch the ball for their sake. I mean, again, at some point we have to say, hey, they see these guys in practice, and these guys, they see them all day, every day in practice. So if they see them in practice, they see them more. They have more information to go off of than we do. That doesn't necessarily mean they make all of the right calls, but we do have to give a little bit of leniency to the staff to make a decision that we probably don't have as much information on. But again, doesn't mean they make it. All right, I'm gonna go Denver -1 here. I have questions about Baltimore. I think Denver's good enough. It really comes down to Teddy and his poise in the pocket. He's played so well so far this year, but he hasn't faced a defense like this. Baltimore is going to put him under a ton of duress. They're going to stress the shit out of him and try to collapse that pocket in a number of different ways. And how does Teddy handle that is the big question to me. Man, I have a ton of favorites this week that I'm picking. I just realized I only have 2 underdogs so far. I'm picking a bunch of favorites to cover. That does not seem ideal. All right, Pitt Green Bay. We won't spend a ton of time in this. Pittsburgh, bad offensive line, bad Big Ben that can't throw the ball is a really bad combination. Crossover. Fair. Harbaugh knows much more than I do. I mean, Harbaugh knows more than this entire chat combined. No offense to chat, but and myself included in all of that, right? Like, I mean, these guys get paid lots of money because they are phenomenal at what they do. And the Ravens coaching staff by themselves have earned a little bit of latitude in their decision making because they are a good staff. I just don't know though. Like, to me, it feels like Tyson Williams is clearly the best runner. But again, if he doesn't fit what they want to do on offense, then he's not going to get snaps. So, Grizz, Teddy will endure. I hope so. I like Teddy. I wanted the Bucks to take Teddy. I wanted the Bucks to take Teddy the year before Jameis, which would have been completely different because they could have gotten Evans. Who did they get in the second round that year? I'm not going to look it up right now, but I'm curious as to who the Bucks got the second round. Teddy was always underrated for some reason, but because Teddy's not a flashy guy. Like, Teddy just makes throws, and they often look easy whenever Teddy does it because he's not gonna try to do too much. And Teddy is never. Nobody ever looks at Teddy and goes, "Oh man, he's gonna kill us." Right? Like, he just does what he needs to do. Like, it's kind of like a Chad Pennington. I want to say Chad Henne. Kind of like a Chad Pennington. Pennington, like, you're never terrified of Chad Pennington, but Pennington's going to hit every single throw that is there. As long as it gets schemed up, he's going to hit it. And so because of that, like, you need to be prepared to be able to defend everything that an offense can do just because they're there. I really want to play. All right, I'll do this. I have enough. I'm gonna have to watch the 4:00 games. I'm setting my lineup while I'm talking to you guys because I got burned by Trey Sermon the first week. Well, I didn't get burned, but I missed Trey Sermon the first week. So he just comes to work. Remind me of how Tannehill was viewed pre-Titans. Yeah, exactly. Once you scheme him up, he's athletic enough and has a good enough arm to do it. Look, he's not going to throw it 70 yards down the field, but you put him on a. By the way, one of my favorite throws in all of football is watching Teddy throw a corner route. Dude just lays it in there. I mean, it is perfect every time. Like, that corner route is phenomenal. He can't throw a go route for shit, but that corner route, magical. Teddy reminds me of Tom B, but I get crucified every time I say that. Tom has a much better deep ball. I will say that. And look, it's important. Don't get me wrong, super important. But when you can't throw it deep, no one gets excited about that. No one gets excited about the guy like a Kirk Cousins that can literally have 9 yards per attempt because he's throwing 10, 12 yards every time and hitting it on a dime and getting first downs with every 1 to 2 throws. Like, that's not exciting for people. It's not good enough because he's not throwing it 70 yards down the field. It's more fun to watch Aaron Rodgers and Justin Herbert throw absolute lasers everywhere. But those are few and far between as far as quarterbacks. So I think Teddy gets it done today. I think Teddy has evolved as a quarterback. I mean, he definitely got his reps in terms of being under pressure last year in Carolina. It's been a long time since he's seen that, but we'll see how it goes today. Pittsburgh, Green Bay. Pittsburgh, bad offensive line. Let's see. Pittsburgh, bad offensive line. Bad Big Ben, who can't throw the ball, who can't move. Looks like he's literally moving in quicksand in everything that he does. A Green Bay front that played much better last week. They seem to kind of marry some of the secondary to what they're doing up front. So if you remember, Green Bay is getting absolutely ripped in what was that Sunday night game a couple of weeks ago. They're getting absolutely ripped, and Matt LaFleur has to go tell Joe Barry, hey, can you stop running 2-man behind a 4-man rush? Like, we got to mix it up a little bit. We got to be better. They changed. a little bit better in the second half there. Last week, the defense rises from the dead, rises from the crypt. It is Halloween. It's October, so rises from the crypt, and all of a sudden shows up, and it's a big W against a good 49ers team. So I think this Green Bay defense is kind of starting to figure it out. I still have no faith in Joe Barry whatsoever to continue this or to continue to be able to adjust. I just don't think this is a game that he has to worry about too much. When Chase Claypool has like 5 catches for 28 yards at one point in last week's game, that's not how to use Chase Claypool. The Pittsburgh's going to have to find ways to move the ball outside of Najee Harris, and find ways to push the ball downfield, and they don't have a quarterback to do that. So Kevin King will get exposed per usual. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not like they have anything else behind them. I know everybody wants to talk about what's his face, but he's not been playing. People are like, oh, he's fantastic. Who's the third? The Stokes. Like, Stokes is all right, but he's not like, it's not like he's coming into the number 2 spot and playing miles better. I mean, he might be a little bit of an upgrade, but NFL gods punished him for that Claypool stat line and took Claypool away from him. Yeah, like I feel sorry for Claypool because he deserves so much better. I think he's easily the best wide receiver on that team and deserves so much better, but he's not going to get it this year. I mean, if you put Mason Rudolph in, fine, whatever. Problem is he's not going to be able to push the ball down the field. He may be the type of guy that's willing to throw it up and let Claypool go win, which has value in itself in this offense right now. Maybe Haskins gets in at some point. Maybe they feel like Haskins is ready. I would doubt that he is, but I would trust I would trust Tomlin and his staff to be able to recognize when Haskins is ready, and if he's going to be the person to the QB to be able to push them over the hump and get them moving. So, in this one, I'm going to take another favorite. I'm going to take Green Bay 6.5. I just don't think Pittsburgh can move it. This feels like it should be the week where they should be able to figure out that offense and move the ball, especially against a Green Bay defense that hasn't been good. My question can Green Bay figure it out enough to hold them off this week? And then I don't know who Green Bay. I feel like Green Bay gets into a bit of a struggle of a schedule after this, if I remember correctly. They're going to get Pittsburgh this week. I feel like that was a break. And then they have an easy schedule. That's what it was. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Chicago, Washington, before they get into a tough stretch of games. So Green Bay is going to be fine. And they're going to get an opportunity to figure it out. Cincinnati could take them, could be hard for them though. That doesn't feel like a good matchup off first. People just like Stokes because of his 40 time. Yeah, he's played okay. But there are people out there that are like, Stokes needs to be the guy. And I'm like, okay. I mean, like, you're swapping the pot for the kettle, right? Like, not really a whole lot of positivity coming out of that. All right, Green Bay -6.5. Tampa Bay, New England. I'm not even going to talk about the big part of this game that everybody else is talking about. Don't really care. Doesn't interest me. I mean, I get it. I get why it's important to everybody else. It's not really part of the game for me. I feel like Tampa Bay is the better overall team. However, I just feel like Belichick's going to have a little bit of a game plan here. I feel like there's something going on where Billy is going to come out and have a good game plan of like, hey, I'm basically not going to let you guys get big plays. I'm going to keep everything. I might play cover 2 today. I know I normally play. Billy might come out there and say, hey, I know I normally play a lot of single high, a lot of man, some cover 3 here and there, but I'm going to come out and play cover 2 because I'm not going to let you beat me deep. How about that? Like, I'm going to force you guys to run the ball because what do you got to run with? Ronald Jones? Nah, that ain't going to get it done. Lenny? Probably not going to get it done either. All right, well, you guys go ahead and run the ball. And I think that there's probably a degree to which Bill says, I want to put Brady in a box and not let him throw 300 yards on me. Um, so I expect a very soft defense from New England today. And I think they're going to try to grind the game to a halt. You may see 60 runs from them today. No, not really. Like they're going to run the ball 30 times probably. Um, even against a defense that typically can't or typically stops the run without even thinking about it. What I've learned is in watching the Bucks is you can run on them on the edges. Once you get away from Vita Vea, if you can get Vita Vea out of the way, everything else kind of like it's okay. Levante David and Devin White are phenomenal, but once you get bodies in front of them and you can get to the edges, I think you're going to be able to. I think there's some success. You're not going to run for 5-6 yards a carry, or at least I don't think you can. But you can run for 3-4 yards a carry, put yourself in positive situations, and let Mac Jones throw the ball, right? And get the first down, or let Mac Jones throw for 4 or 5 yards on first down, then run, get your first down, and then figure out what's working for you, and then keep doing that, right? I think that's probably what they're going to go for. I think New England knows they've got to grind this game to a halt, and I get it. Every other team, I've said this a lot. Every other team has said, no, we're going to go throw on this secondary because we know we can beat this secondary. But Josh McDaniels is very much a type of guy where he goes, I'm going to run the shit out of the ball, and then I'm going to throw in the opportunities that make sense. And when I do, I'm going to leave 6 guys in to block, and I'm going to send 3 receivers out, and I'm going to let my quarterback make a decision. Now, do they trust Mac Jones enough? That's the question, right? Do they trust Mac Jones enough to be able to make those against the secondary? I would say hell yeah, they do. Because when you're down to your fifth string cornerback and Richard Sherman, who was just signed off the street 3 days ago, like that's not. Richard Sherman's probably going to be okay. And I said this on Twitter. The problem with having new guys in the secondary and letting them play, EJ Henderson, good example. Richard Sherman, another example. When cornerbacks screw up, it's big, right? Like it's painful. If a defensive end screws up, he doesn't get to the quarterback. All right. He got beat on that play. Like left tackle absolutely stones him, pancakes a defensive end on a pass play. Okay. Pressure doesn't get there. Probably a completion. Not necessarily like it's not necessarily a big completion, but on a cornerback that blows a coverage, that's probably 6 points. And if it's not 6 points, it's 20, 30 yards. Unless it's just a super soft defense and he happens to have a safety behind him that makes a good play and makes a tackle, right? But it's still probably a first down. So when quarterbacks screw up, like if you're talking about building a team, having a very high ceiling defensive end that has a very low floor, perfectly okay. If you have a very high ceiling cornerback with a very low floor, that's bad. That's asking to get taken advantage of. That's a guy that is probably going to get beat bad 3 or 4 times a game, and it's going to cost you 7 to 14 points. That's not something that you can live with. So, yes, I think that New England can attack these guys, but I don't think that's what they particularly want to do. And I think BB probably comes in and says, I don't want Tom Brady to throw for 300 yards today. So let's grind this game to a halt. Try to end up with 40 minutes time in possession. Keep the ball out of his hands. Don't get beat by Mike Evans or especially Antonio Brown if he plays. Let's relax. Bucks, that is. Where do they play their top 3 safeties this week? So they'll have they've been playing Edwards in the cornerback position with Whitehead and Winfield as the safeties. I don't anticipate that changes. Having 2 tight ends on the field potentially allows them to bring in a third linebacker And they may end up playing extra linebackers simply because of the two tight ends this week. If New England tries to spread them out, I'd be curious how the Bucks match it, right? Like when they go into 11 personnel, do the Bucks go to zone and end up with three linebackers in and play in a base defense, or four down linemen and then what they consider three linebackers, because they will go three down linemen and four backers, right? Like when they play guys like JPP and Tryon Shoyinka, like they're considered edge players, not necessarily backers. So when I say backers, I'm talking about Levante David, and Devin White, and Mentor. Is Mentor out? Mentor's probably out, huh? Um, I was gonna say Mentor might get in and play middle linebacker a little bit. Yeah, JPP's out, Gronk's out, Jamel Dean's out, Giovanni's out, Scotty Miller's out, Sean Murphy Bunting's out, Justin Watson, not a big deal. Yeah, I mean, I think that's how Grizz. I think that's how they've got to play it. They got to put Edwards in. I mean, they consider Edwards a safety, so because of that, Edwards is they feel like Edwards can come up and fill, um, and that's not necessarily the best spot for Antoine Winfield, who, by the way, Winfield needs to show up. Like, I really am interested to see how they end up, what they end up doing with Winfield, because I feel like they were much more multiple with what they did with Winfield last year, and they haven't been as creative. And I think it's ultimately impacted his productivity and how he's being viewed this year. Um, yeah, I mean, it's the only way that I can see. You don't want Cockrell on the field any more than what he has to be. He got exposed last week. I know everybody were like, "Oh, we love Russ Cockrell," and I'm like, "Well, so does the other team." Um, yeah, it's gonna be tough, man. I think this is closer than what everybody wants it to be. Everybody wants, Tom Brady to come in and just take it too, and I think New England's gonna come in with a good game plan. They don't have enough talent to. They know they don't have enough talent to match up. However, I do think that they're gonna come in and take and Bill Belichick's the best at taking away what the other team wants to do, right? Like if he knows that they do one thing really well, he's not going to let them do that. And the big play is what they do really well. So Bucks are going to have to dink and dunk their offense down the field. They're going to need to be able to run the ball because I think New England's going to try to invite them to do so. I've been saying that this is probably the game plan that teams take all the time, but other teams are like, "No, we're going to try to throw." And let's be fair, the Cowboys and Rams are two of the few teams in the NFL that should be able to throw at that clip and still be able to keep up. And then the Bucks have to be better on play calling on offense. Sometimes I don't know what the hell they're doing, and they've got to be clean because the New England will take advantage of every little thing that you do. They can't be dropping the ball this week, Grizz. Yeah, exactly. They've got to be clean. They've got to be super, super clean in everything that they do, or New England could end up winning this game. Like it wouldn't be the biggest surprise. I would be surprised simply because I do think the Bucks are just all around much better, and are at this point are as well coached because they are much better, um, in terms of talent. But I'm going to take for this one. I'm going to take New England plus 6.5, and I think that's fair. There was a point where I think it was plus 7 earlier in the week. Would have felt much better about that, but plus 6.5 is great. If Daniel Jones can beat the Bucks, so can his cousin. I mean, last year was a different year. Earlier in the year, somebody was on Twitter telling me, well, what was it? I want to make sure I get this right. I forget exactly how they phrased it, but they were basically like, no, the Bucks were a good team last year, in the first half of the season. And I'm like, no, they weren't. Their offense wasn't in sync. They didn't have an identity. They didn't know what they wanted to do. They couldn't get the run game going. they thought that they could run it on first down and would continue to do so. Like, they got beat in a few games that they shouldn't have been beat in because they didn't know what the hell they were doing. They hadn't quite figured it out. And then they get to week 13, bye week, move on to 14, and then they end up like, oh, hey, this is how we should play offense with all of these weapons and the greatest quarterback ever. We should probably throw the ball 70% of the time. And then they just let it happen. And that's how they ended up getting to the Super Bowl and winning, plus a little bit of luck. So, yeah. All right. Final game of the week. Vegas and Chargers. Fascinating game. Wish I could spend more time on it. We did go a little bit over this week, but really, really cool. Really, really cool to see this game on Monday night, because I do think it's going to be a terrific game. You guys know I love the Chargers, love Brandon Staley. Think that he's doing a fantastic job calling a defense. Having Justin Herbert is such a benefit for them, because that kid he's unfazed by anything that happens on the field or off the field. He just continues to go out and deliver. Very short memory when he makes a bad play. Can throw laser beams all over the field. They've got big Mike Williams and Keenan Allen who can get open against one-on-one man coverage. They are uncoverable on 50-50 balls. Like, I think Vegas is going to struggle in this game. And I know everybody loves Vegas, but the Derek Carr is going to have to. So this is why it's so important for Josh Jacobs to play in this game. If Josh Jacobs doesn't play, even though you can run on the Chargers, they've shown that they're not great against the run, which, by the way, Brandon Staley's okay with. Brandon Staley's like, okay, run. As long as you can't throw on me, I don't give a damn if you can run on me. Sure, run for 3.5 yards a carry. And it's not going to get you a first down. So what do I care if you run for 3.5 yards? And you're not, most teams aren't aggressive enough to go for it on fourth down, even though they're running for 3.5 carries. So he's not worried about it. Just as long as you can't throw on him, he's okay. So Derwin James, Darren Waller, gonna see Derwin James pretty much all game. So that's gonna mean potentially a big game for Ruggs, for Edwards. They've got to be able to run the ball. If they can't run the ball, Chargers are gonna eat on defense, I think. And then on offense, Chargers, they seem content to just throw the ball all over the yard and say, I don't really care about the run game. Eckler, he's had an okay start to the season, but there's just not a ton of opportunities. Even against the Chiefs team that typically lets people run against them, just not a huge focus for them. I think the Chargers, I still continue to think the Chargers are one of the best teams in the league. I think Vegas is close to being for real, like close to being what everybody wants them to be or believes that they should be. But I just think the Chargers, especially at home, are going to be too much for them. So I'm going to take, you know what? I'm going to take Vegas. I'm only doing this. This is stupid for me. I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm going to take, I'm going to take Las Vegas +3. For 3.5, I'd feel much better. Yeah, I'm going to take Vegas +3. I think the Chargers are the better team here, but I'm only taking, and this is the stupidest reason to do this, I'm going to take Vegas +3 simply because I feel like I have too many favorites picked this week. All right. That is all 16 games. Well, 15 for today and tomorrow, because we already picked Thursday night, which was game number 1. So with the other 15, we've got, for all of the 15 games for Sunday and Monday, we have Washington, Atlanta +1. I'm taking +1.5. I'm taking Washington -1.5. That defensive front has still been solid, but silent. They need to actually get to the quarterback and take him down. Only not very many sacks this year. The secondary has looked awful. I do think that Washington can move the ball. They need to give the ball to Antonio Gibson. I want to see him touch the ball 20, 25 times today. If they do that, I think they're going to win pretty easily. Atlanta can move the ball. Has a pretty good quick game. Just not sure that they have the defense to be able to stop the Washington offense. And until they start trying to throw the ball down the field and scheming up things to throw the ball down the field, can't believe in Atlanta. Buffalo minus 17. I know that's a huge game. It has moved to minus 19 now at time of game. I know that it feels like a lot. The problem is with Buffalo. They won 43-21 last week. They won 35-0 the week before. They just demolish bad teams, and Houston is a bad team. If Tyrod was playing in this game, I would feel much better about taking Houston on that side and covering, but it feels like Buffalo continues to just be squeeze the life out of bad teams. All right, these games are going to click out here in a second in our board, but that's fine. Detroit, Chicago, picking Detroit +3. They've got to be my upset pick of the week because I don't see any other upsets that's going to happen. So I'm going to pick Detroit upset of the week. I still don't think Justin Fields has it. I don't think Matt Nagy gives him what he needs. They've got to do more running, more offense, more creativity on offense, get Justin Fields moving out of the pocket. I do think Detroit should be prepared for that because everybody knows that that's what they should be doing. TKH, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Yeah, definitely think that is probably the best upset of the week. And Detroit, they can claw, they can run the ball, and they can claw and fight towards the end of the game. So maybe this week they finally get it. Again, they shouldn't have been in that Baltimore game and made it as close as it was, but towards the end, they should have won it at the end on a technicality, basically. So, yeah, I'm going to take Detroit +3, call that my upset pick of the week. Carolina, Dallas. This is my favorite schematic game of the week. Phil Snow versus Kellen Moore is absolutely fascinating. Best game of the week. Can't wait to watch this on all 22. I'm going to take Carolina +4, though I still think Dallas wins. The reason I say that is I think Dallas is the overall better team. I think Carolina is not as good as they've looked so far, but they are still a good football team. Are they worthy of 3-0? They've earned it. But this is their first real test. I just think Dallas is too much, especially on offense for them. Dallas defense is good enough. It's a weird game, but I'm going to take Carolina to cover, but still lose. Cover the +4. Indiana, Miami -2. That's a lock. I think Jacoby Brissett makes this offense better. I think they're getting healthy with Will Fuller coming in. Devontae Parker should be much better. The offensive line is still a mess for Miami. Though I don't think that's going to be a big deal against Indy. Indy's just bad all over. Carson Wentz can't move. He's basically the homeless man's version of Ben Roethlisberger, or maybe the Ben Roethlisberger is now the homeless man's version of Carson Wentz. I don't know. They're very close though, and their inability to do anything at this point. So Miami -2 feels like the lock of the week to me. Cleveland, Minnesota. Minnesota is. I'm going off my old line, so I need to make sure I'm doing this right. Oh, all these games have already started, huh? Where's my Cleveland, Minnesota? Cleveland, Minnesota. Did I pass it? Yeah, Cleveland, Minnesota. No, that's not right. Yeah, they're pulling the games off the board. Okay. Cleveland, Minnesota. Cleveland, I'm taking Cleveland -1. Reason for that is I think they're the better overall team. I do think Minnesota is good. This could be a very close game. Minnesota to Minnesota in the money line isn't a bad pick here because they very easily could win this. The line did move in favor of Minnesota this week. So there's clearly some people that think that Minnesota is the real deal, including myself. This is probably my weakest pick of the week. Like this is one where I don't know who wins this game. New York Giants, New Orleans, Giants bad, New Orleans good. Jameis somewhere in between. I'm going to take New Orleans -7 simply because I think this defense of New Orleans is going to put the stranglehold on the Giants. I don't foresee them having a whole lot of offense, even as well as Daniel Jones is playing. I'm trying to say good things about the Giants, but it's really hard, man. Tennessee, New York Jets, Tennessee -5.5. Even with, I'm curious, did that game end up moving anymore? Because it was 7, ended up moving to 5.5. Not on my board anymore. Curious as to what that game ended up with at game time because it was -7, ended up at -5.5. I'm still taking Tennessee. Jets are not that good. They haven't figured out how to game plan for their young quarterback. Zach Wilson needs to learn to get rid of the ball. Offensive line can't block for the Jets. Defense ain't good. Tennessee, much better overall team, still have Derrick Henry to be able to run it, even without A.J. Brown and Julio Jones today. Still expect them to cover the 5.5. KC Philly. This is a game that feels like KC should have been favored by 10 or more. Philly just a little bit banged up. Not a complete team yet. Jalen Hurts. This is a bad matchup, I think, for Jalen Hurts because he loves to one read and then one or two reads and then take off with it. And he's got to be better about that. He's got to hang in the pocket a little bit more. KC isn't fundamental on defense, but I do think that they can create some turnovers. And I think Jalen Hurts is going to give him the ball a couple times. KC -7 feels like a pretty good pick. Arizona, Los Angeles Rams. Rams -4 is my pick in this one. I still can't get behind Arizona. I know they're 3-0. I've watched a bunch of tape on them the last week. I just don't feel like they're a consistent team. And when they get up against really good teams, it's going to be really hard for them to really manage those teams when they play so inconsistent and inconsistent on defense, and really inconsistent on offense. Kyler Murray puts them in a hole and then bails them out, and that's a hard way to live in the NFL. And when you play against good teams, they're going to make you pay for it. I think Rams -4. And I think Rams are probably the most complete team in the NFL right now. And I'm not saying that just because they whooped the Bucks last week, though that was very, very impressive. Seattle, San Francisco. San Francisco -3 is what I'm taking here. Seattle's defense, bad. Very, very bad. Seattle offense, good. San Francisco, good kind of all around. I think this is a matchup that favors San Francisco because Shanahan can create space for his players, for all of his skill players on offense. And I think that Seattle's defense leaves a lot of space. That's a bad combination, leads to a lot of yards after the catch, a lot of chunk plays. Jimmy G has got to figure it out at quarterback. If he can be accurate today, San Francisco could put up 30 or 40 today on Seattle. Seattle is going to have to figure a way to keep up against a much better defense than their own in San Francisco. I don't think San Francisco is a great defense, probably average. But I think that overall they're the better team. And in San Francisco, I've got to take those 3 points. Denver, Baltimore, another good game. One that I'm fascinated in. Can't wait to watch this one. Denver -1 is the pick. Can Teddy actually hang in there in the pocket and deliver the football to some receivers that are gonna may struggle a little bit more to get open this week than they have against the preseason schedule that Denver has been playing? We'll see. I'm fascinated by this. I think Teddy gets it done today. The real question is how does the Denver defense scheme it up against Lamar? I think Miller rushing in front, some protection on the backside to keep Lamar from escaping too much. They will play conservatively aggressive. That's a terrible term. Conservatively aggressive at the defensive end spots to keep him kind of in the pocket. And then they're going to have some guys in zone back there ready to collapse on those edges and keep Lamar from escaping forward in the pocket. They want him running backwards or to the sidelines. They don't want him running forward. Denver -1. I like that pick. Pittsburgh, Green Bay. Green Bay -6.5 is who I'm taking here. Pittsburgh offense is just non-existent without Big Ben. They dink and dunk, and Green Bay shouldn't threaten Green Bay's not very good defense. Green Bay did figure it out a little bit last week. Super interested to see if they can hold that together on defense. Pittsburgh can get some pressure up front, so Rodgers might have some struggles today, but I'm not afraid of it yet at all. Of Pittsburgh's back into that defense. So as long as Rodgers can move the ball, I don't think it's any problem for Green Bay because I don't think Pittsburgh's going to put up much today. Brady goes home. Nobody cares. Well, everybody else cares. I don't. I'm taking New England +6.5 in this game. I think New England's going to come in with a game plan to try to keep this game close and take away the big plays for Tampa Bay. Of all the teams that Tampa Bay has faced so far, this is the team that knows that they cannot try to keep up with a high-powered Tampa Bay offense, and they're going to come in probably playing some cover 2. Final game, Vegas and Chargers on Monday night. I'm taking Vegas +3. I think the Chargers win this game. I don't feel great about this pick simply because I kind of feel like the Chargers cover. the Raiders can come back and call some big plays in some big situations, which should kind of lead into a backdoor cover potentially. I don't think Raiders win, but I think Chargers win. Just is a question of if they can cover or not. So I'm going to take Raiders +3. All right, that is all 15 games today and tomorrow. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Really, really appreciate it. It has been an absolute blast for everybody that has participated, asked questions. Love everybody jumping in and hanging out. Hope you guys enjoy your Sunday. Hope all of your teams have. Not everybody can win, but hope all of your teams win. And if your team's playing my team, I don't have a team, so we're okay on that. All right, let's do something real quick. I want to find somebody for you guys to raid, and then we're gonna go watch some football since it is 1:12. I'm gonna find somebody that is gonna be side casting that should be fun for you guys today. Let's go see who is streaming football. Once we stream, once I find somebody to be able to do this for you, that is going to be fun for you guys to do. Maybe we do Gold Glover crossover. Thanks for another insightful stream. Appreciate it, man. Again, we're gonna try to keep this moving and keep improving. I can't wait. Can't wait to figure out some more things, and whenever I have some more time, we'll get some guests on here. What I'd like to do is kind of like a preview of the opponent every week that the Bucks are going to do. So if we can see, so if we can find somebody, that would be fantastic. Browse sports. Appreciate you guys hanging around. I know I had to throw that last one in there because it's like 1 per hour. So I need to make sure to get that third one in there. Let's see, sports. Let's go to, I need to figure out how to get to the American football one very quick. All right, we rated her last week. Let's see, we rated Bridget Case at one point. Who else? Rated G Girl last week. Oh, look at that. My ugly mug's on there. Let's go. You know, let's go to the fantasy sports guys. These guys look like they're going to be these guys look like they're going to be fun. I don't know these guys very well, but we're gonna give it a shot. All right, let me see. Fantasy Football Addicts. I don't know if you guys know anything about them, but we are going to drop you guys in there. These guys looks like they're gonna. All right, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you guys for hanging out. Have a great Sunday. Really looking forward to catching you guys on the Tuesday night stream when we are recapping everything that happened today and Monday. Have a good Sunday, guys.